Chapter 852. Before Li Zongjio could lecture the King of Fire, who was lying on the bed, he heard a voice coming from outside the window. Furthermore, there was a large number of footsteps coming from the staircase. Li Zongjio immediately looked at the King of Fire, who was lying on the bed. Just now, there was someone who didn't know what was good for him. Therefore I killed him. I guess he must have some influence in the area. The King of Fire moved his fingers. He seemed to be checking if there were any problems with his fingernails. It seemed like his liver had been too hot recently, and he needed to trim his fingernails. Boom! Li Zongjio's door was directly smashed open. At the same time, there were many people with long swords rushing in. These people all looked malnourished. Their faces were pale and their bodies were thin. When they rushed in, they saw Li Zongjio and the King of Fire on the bed. "It's this bitch," the leader of the group said. The crowd separated, and a figure quickly walked out. "Family head, this is the woman who killed the young master." A middle-aged man wearing a blood-red robe walked in. "Stinking bitch, how dare you kill my Shui Yaoyang's son? Today I will suck your blood dry." The person who came called himself Shui Yaoyang. If he was in the city, he should know that Li Zongjio and the others had offended someone they couldn't afford to offend. Shui Yaoyang, family head of the Shui family. The Shui family was one of the 4 great families in Mystic Ghost City. Although their strength wasn't as strong as the Liang family, they were definitely one of the top families in the city. Now, the son of the Shui family's family head was dead. As the head of the Shui clan, he naturally had to find the King of Fire and have a good talk with him. The Yuan formula practiced by the Xie clan was a kind of Yuan formula that allowed one to directly absorb blood and cultivate. It was very similar to Li Zongjio's previous cultivation method. However, the difference was that Li Zongjio could freely control and absorb the energy within the blood. However, the Xie clan members had a kind of dependent nature. If they couldn't escape from it, they could only continue to sink into it. He immersed himself in the blood. He had to absorb blood to cultivate almost every day. Originally, the young master of the Shui clan had taken a liking to the King of Fire. The young master of the Shui clan's hobby every day was to choose a woman on the street and suck her blood dry to maintain his cultivation. Unfortunately, he was very unlucky to meet the King of Fire tonight. Naturally, he was killed by the King of Fire without saying a word. However, he didn't kill all the little ones. However, whoever got close, opened their mouths, or spoke were all easily killed by the King of Fire. Now that Shui Yaoyang had brought people over, he was determined to capture the King of Fire. When he saw that there was actually another person in the room, Shui Yaoyang immediately gave the order. "Cut this brat into pieces. Cut him into pieces. My son is already dead. Why you still alive and well? You must be in cahoots with that chick. I'm in a bad mood now. Get out of here and pay the compensation to the Shui clan." Li Zongjio said indifferently. Shui Yaoyang felt as though he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He had never heard of anyone who dared to say such things to him. "You're courting death. How dare you speak to the head of the Shui clan like that?" Immediately, 2 people holding long swords rushed towards Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio went forward and crushed their heads. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere. Before the head of the Shui clan could react, he saw Li Zongjio appear in front of him. Bang! Without saying a word, he smashed Shui Yaoyang's head with a punch. The dignified Shui clan's patriarch was killed just like that. This was really unexpected. The blood that splashed out from his neck was already starting to turn green. It was even more shocking. When the subordinates of the Shui clan saw this scene, their eyes widened in disbelief. Clan head is dead. However, it wasn't just the head of the Shui clan. Everyone who wore the uniform of the Shui clan was killed by Li Zongjio. Dozens of headless corpses fell down in the inn. Such a tragic situation was really unprecedented. The owner of the inn was scared silly. He had never seen such a horrifying scene. A bunch of trash. After Li Zongjio crippled these people, he took a bath very directly. It was inevitable that his body was stained with a trace of blood. When Li Zongjio walked out of the bathroom, he realized that the King of Fire was already asleep on the bed. Faced with such a situation, Li Zongjio had nowhere to vent his anger. Furthermore, this little girl was actually able to sleep peacefully in such a situation. With such a cultivation level, she still needed to sleep? Li Zongjio naturally didn't know. However, when he saw the King of Fire sleeping, Li Zongjio didn't wake him up. Fuck! After cursing, Li Zongjio sat down and meditated all the way until dawn. There was still a whole day before the opening of the Ghost King's secret realm. However, they had to go to the vicinity of the Ghost King's secret realm tonight. Otherwise, they would not be able to get a good position. Moreover, the entrance to the Ghost King's secret realm was not easy to find. The clan head of the Shui clan was killed by someone. In the huge Xiango city, it wouldn't take long for the whole city to know about this. The rest of the people didn't care. However, there was one person who couldn't sit still when this matter appeared. In the Shui clan's mansion, an old man in a white robe was there. His face was pale as if he was smeared with flour. He looked like he was about to shed his ashes. However, his hair was black and shiny. It was full of vitality. However, his face looked like it was about to dry up. Two extremes were displayed on this person's face. Patriarch, someone must be behind this. They want to take advantage of the chaos to suppress the Shui clan. The Shui clan's century-old foundation is actually being provoked today. We definitely can't ignore it. An elder of the Shui clan said angrily as he stood up. Although he seemed to be filled with righteous indignation, he was actually overjoyed. The clan head and the young clan head had been killed. Wasn't he the most powerful person to take over the position of the clan head? Therefore, now that he had taken the lead to stir up trouble, he had to bring the culprit to justice. As long as he caught the culprit, he would be considered to have made a great contribution. Then, he would be able to take over the position of the clan head. Whoever dares to provoke the blood demon patriarch, I will make him pay a painful price. Bring him to Egypt and search for the culprit with all your might. The old man with black hair and a white face was actually called the blood demon patriarch. It was unknown where he had obtained the Yuan cultivation technique. He had actually used it to cultivate to his current level. Although the blood demon patriarch was powerful, he was actually only a Yuan monarch elite. However, a Yuan monarch elite was already considered a pinnacle existence in the mysterious ghost city. Patriarch, there is no need to search. The culprit has been staying in the inn all night. He hasn't left at all. The elder said straightforwardly. The blood demon patriarch glared at the elder. Couldn't you investigate the culprit's identity? Couldn't you investigate the culprit's background? However, there were so many elders present at the clan meeting. Since he had already said that, he naturally couldn't take it back. Thus, he could only bite the bullet and continue. Alright, gather the men for me. I want to meet these people personally. The blood demon patriarch of the Shui clan suddenly made a big move and mobilized the majority of the experts in the clan. Clearly, he wanted to intimidate them with his strength. The people of the Liang family also heard about this and hurriedly reported it to Shangui. Ever since Shangui had left the mountain, he had been cultivating with the female disciple in the room every day. He was never tired of it. Now that he had been disturbed because of this matter, he didn't look too good. However, when he heard that it was the blood demon patriarch who had made a move, his eyes narrowed slightly. That little blood demon has also become the patriarch of the Shui clan? Alright, I want to see who actually dares to provoke the Shui clan. Shangui was also very curious about this matter. Thus, he immediately put on some clothes and rushed out. Chapter 853. The Fire Wraith King got up lazily, stretched, and yawned. He looked around and saw Li Zongjio resting on a chair opposite him. He suddenly screamed, "Ah, you stinky hooligan, why did you sleep in my room?" Li Zongjio opened his eyes helplessly. Although he was resting, he was still able to detect any movements around him very quickly. "Big sister, you slept in my room." King of Fire bit his finger and tried to recall. It did seem to be the case. He slept in Li Zongjio's room. King of Fire immediately got up. The quality of the clothes was indeed not exaggerated. Last night, the King of Fire's actions did not even leave a trace of damage on the clothes. However, Li Zongjio did not pay attention to himself before. On the other hand, Xiao Zhao prepared 10 sets of clothes for Li Zongjio to change into daily. Moreover, The material of these clothes was warm in winter and cool in summer. Not only was it very comfortable to wear, but it was also very effective for the cultivation of yuan li and protection of some of the vital parts. It could be said that he was very competent as a housekeeper. Therefore, Li Zongjiu's current situation did not look bad. Let's go. We will enter the mountain today. King of Fire was already dressed up. However, Li Zongjiu looked at King of Fire. He did not seem to need any decorations. He already had such a beautiful appearance. What was the origin of the egg you took yesterday? Li Zongjiu couldn't help but ask. If it was something that even a powerhouse like the Fire Wraith King was interested in, it must be something powerful. However, the Fire Wraith King seemed to like it yesterday, but he didn't see it again today. No origin. It's just a small thing. King of Fire said calmly. What about the eggs? I was hungry last night, so I ate it. Li Zongjiu was speechless. This guy was really interesting. Fortunately, he didn't pay the money at that time. Otherwise, it would be too much of a loss. Li Zongjiu didn't dare to agree with the King of Fire's interests. Since he was ready to leave, he might as well go out. The innkeeper and the waiter had already fled. There weren't even any guests in the inn. After all, there were so many corpses lying in the corridor. Not many people would dare to sleep in such an inn. Li Zongjiu and King of Fire had just walked onto the street. Then he saw someone galloping over from afar. Moreover, this was a huge commotion. A group of people rushed out. The surrounding streets had already been sealed off. The people of the Xie family had cleared the surrounding area. The person leading the charge was the blood demon ancestor of the Xie family. In this operation, the blood demon ancestor had used a lot of power to create such a huge effect. The surrounding 3 streets were completely emptied. On the roofs, on the eaves, and on the streets, there were close to 300 experts. No matter where Li Zongjiu and King of Fire went, they wouldn't be able to escape. Even the Blood Devil ancestor was very satisfied with his masterpiece. At the same time, he could also show the people of Mystic Ghost City whether or not the Shui family could succeed in Mystic Ghost City, whether or not the Shui family was an extremely arrogant existence, and how many people would dare to mess with the Shui family and disrespect them. The person in front, quickly report your name. The blood demon ancestor held a blood-red longsword in his hand and pointed it at Li Zongjiu. These 2 young people had just walked out, and they immediately encountered such a thing. If they were ordinary people, they would probably have been scared witless. However, the blood demon ancestor's existence was indeed unable to threaten Li Zongjiu or King of Fire. Boom! King of Fire's figure instantly soared into the sky. Li Zongjiu's figure also chased after him. Boom! There was clearly an inescapable encirclement around them, but Li Zongjiu and the Fire Wraith King simply disappeared and soared into the sky. The sword in the blood demon ancestor's hand was pointed at the empty space. The people around him were already prepared to start a massacre. These experts from the Blood Clan would never have thought that they had painstakingly set this up for the entire morning. Furthermore, they had been waiting here for a long time. Who would have thought that the enemy would appear for only a few seconds and disappear while chatting? Only about 300 experts of the Xie family were left here, feeling the cold wind. Now, even the blood demon ancestor did not know how to end this situation. They stayed in the same spot for a long time, feeling awkward. Ancestor, should we chase after them? The great elder from before could not help but ask. There had to be an explanation for such a situation. Otherwise, many people would continue to stay here in a daze. Chase after your head. The ancestor directly slapped the great elder in front of so many people. If he did not vent his anger, he would not know how to end today's matter. After slapping the great elder, the blood demon ancestor's mood became slightly better. Let's go back first. The blood demon ancestor waved his hand and said. Then, the blood demon ancestor took the lead and turned his horse around, heading back in the direction of his family. The rest of the Xie family members also followed behind the horse. Fortunately, there were no other people around. Otherwise, the Xie family would have lost a lot of face today. They had painstakingly set up an inescapable trap, but the other party did not even look at it and just disappeared with a leap. There was nothing they could do about it. Even if they wanted to chase after them, their speed was not something that ordinary people could catch up with. It seemed like Shui Yaoyang and his son had really offended some people that they could not afford to offend. That was why they ended up like this. It was really a pity. In short, when the blood demon ancestor saw such a situation, he finally calmed down. If he chased after them, only death would await him. Before leaving, he directly moved all the corpses in the inn back one by one. He realized that the people who were beaten to death in the inn seemed to have died a very painful death. Some of them even had their hands and legs broken, and their blood flowed out until they died. Looking at the Xie family members who left in shame and anger. In the distance, Shan Gui also frowned. The origins of the two people just now had not been revealed. Even the people from the Liang family did not know the identity of the two people. However, they were still in the process of investigating. He believed that there would be a result soon. Those two people are really not weak. We have to be careful when the time comes. A man and a woman. They are clearly here for the Ghost King's secret realm. Shan Gui was secretly on guard. He naturally had to be vigilant against such nameless experts. This was because these nameless people usually had this last resort. The reason why Shan Gui was able to survive until now and possess the strength and status he had today was because he knew how to be careful. He would never underestimate anyone. Even if the person looked really weak, he would never let his guard down before chopping off his head. Li Zongjio and the King of Fire rushed into the mysterious ghost mountain without eating. My mental power is greatly affected here. With a boom, the two of them landed on the ground. The powerful aura also set off a huge wave of dust, causing the surrounding vegetation to sway violently. There are a lot of ghost ink ores at the bottom of the mysterious ghost mountain. Therefore, the restriction on mental energy is greater. The King of Fire said. Li Zongjio did not expect that the King of Fire would actually study these things. In that case, it would be even more difficult to find the entrance to the Ghost King's secret realm. However, Li Zongjio's main goal was not to find the Ghost King's secret realm. If he could find some precious herbs, it would be a very profitable thing for Li Zongjio. Just now, he wanted to use his mental energy to search for rare herbs. However, he realized that his mental energy was affected. Although it was affected, it was still difficult to resist Li Zongjio's mental energy. Everything within 100 meters was clearly captured by Li Zongjio. The 500-year-old Ghost King's tear leaf is actually here. Chapter 854. The 500-year-old tear leaf of the Ghost King contained an extremely dense dark aura. If one touched the tear leaf of the Ghost King and accidentally pricked one's finger, it would be equivalent to losing one's life. The poison on the tear leaf could send one to hell in a matter of minutes. It was no joke at all. Li Zongjio skillfully took out a set of tools, then walked forward, wanting to transplant the tear leaf of the Ghost King. As an alchemist, there were times when he encountered precious medicinal herbs in the wild, but they had not yet matured. What could he do? Naturally, he could only transplant them. Otherwise, when the medicinal herbs matured, they would have been taken away by others. Or they would have been destroyed by others. Anything could happen. Therefore, the smartest way was to transplant the tear leaf of the Ghost King. Just as Li Zongjio was about to transplant the tear leaf of the Ghost King, an extremely terrifying aura suddenly appeared above his head, as if it was going to swallow Li Zongjio's entire head. Whoosh! Li Zongjio retreated. The figure that descended from the sky directly landed in front of Li Zongjio and the King of Fire. Its powerful claws scratched towards Li Zongjio's head. It was a tiger python beast. It had a python head and a tiger body. It killed people like flies. It was extremely ferocious and cunning. Its claws almost brushed past Li Zongjio's hair. When the King of Fire saw the tiger python beast, he also took a small step back. It was not that he was afraid of the tiger python beast, but he wanted to put some distance between himself and Li Zongjio. He wanted to let the tiger python beast know that he was not with Li Zongjio, so he could go directly to him. As a virtuous lady, the Fire Wraith King often warned herself not to fight outside if she could. Otherwise, others would think that she was very rude. Therefore, the King of Fire also took a small step back and put some distance between himself and Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio did not care about the King of Fire's actions. The tiger python beast in front of him was already an adult, and its strength was comparable to a peak Yuan monarch. The King of Fire also wanted to see how strong Li Zongjio was. If an ordinary Yuan monarch encountered the tiger python beast, they would be somewhat restrained and it would not be easy to get rid of it. It was also a good opportunity to see Li Zongjio's skills. Tisk! The tiger python beast flicked its snake tongue at Li Zongjio. It tried its best to protect the Ghost King's tear leaf behind it, as if to say, "The Ghost King's tear leaf is mine. If you dare to mess around, I'll fight you to the death." Obviously, the tiger python beast also felt that the strength of Li Zongjio and the King of Fire was not to be trifled with. Therefore, the tiger python beast only threatened Li Zongjio and did not do anything too extreme. "Either you leave by yourself or I'll kill you." Li Zongjio took out his Desolate Heaven Essence. The Desolate Heaven Essence immediately emitted an extremely terrifying light. The light was clearly threatening the tiger python beast in front of it. The tiger python beast's eyes narrowed as it looked at the Desolate Heaven Essence in front of it. Then it looked at Li Zongjio and the King of Fire. It scratched the ground with its claws as if it was extremely reluctant to part with the Desolate Heaven Essence, but it was also afraid of Li Zongjio's strength. In the end, it looked at the Ghost King's tear leaf behind it and leaped into the depths of the forest. So, its figure disappeared. Li Zongjio weighed the Desolate Heaven Essence in his hand. Li Zongjio was very satisfied with this fellow's wise choice. At the very least, this fellow still had some brains. If it had charged forward just now, Li Zongjio would have been able to cripple this little thing with a single blow. The King of Fire was like a deflated balloon. It was really boring. He thought that there would be a fierce battle. At the very least, he wanted to see Li Zongjio rolling on the ground. However, things had developed in this way, and the tiger python beast was still very smart. Li Zongjio stepped forward and moved the 500-year-old Ghost King's tear leaf into a basin. He placed some vitality stones in the basin to help the Ghost King's tear leaf stabilize its aura. At the same time, it also ensured that the Ghost King's tear leaf could continue to live. "Let's go," Li Zongjio said after doing all this. The most important thing now was to find the entrance to the Ghost King mystic realm. However, the King of Fire didn't seem to have a map and could only walk around randomly. Li Zongjio asked the King of Fire, "Since you don't even have a map, how are you going to find this place?" The King of Fire only said that there would be a lot of people coming. Hence, there was no need to worry about not finding it. Of course, it would be even better if they could find it by accident. Hence, Li Zongjio was constantly looking for herbs along the way. Originally, these medicinal herbs were guarded by extremely ferocious Yuan beasts. However, after encountering the combination of Li Zongjio and the King of Fire, these Yuan beasts obediently left. These meta beasts walked away obediently, as if they were enduring the humiliation. They turned around and left, allowing Li Zongjio to take advantage of them. It seemed like these Yuan beasts had learned to be smart. "You don't say. These dark-attributed Yuan beasts are smarter than ordinary Yuan beasts," Li Zongjio said. The Fire Wraith King also nodded seriously. However, the King of Fire knew that the reason why the Yuan beasts chose to leave wasn't because they felt threatened by the two of them. In fact, it was because of the aura released from the Desolate Heaven Essence in Li Zongjio's hand. It was the aura that came from the vast wilderness. "Can I take a look at your weapon?" After Li Zongjio took out the Desolate Heaven Essence for the umpteenth time, the King of Fire finally couldn't help but ask, "Are you talking about this?" "Take it." Li Zongjio directly threw the Desolate Heaven Essence to the King of Fire in front of him. The Desolate Heaven Essence was obtained from the Genius Tower. Although it was very bearable to use at the moment, it didn't have much of a deterrent effect after reaching the Sovereign stage. Even when facing the Fire Ghost King, who was at the peak of the primitive Emperor realm, its power was just like an ordinary kitchen knife. Such a precious weapon was actually thrown to the King of Fire without any warning. Following that, Li Zongjio continued to fiddle with his plants. In the eyes of the King of Fire, Li Zongjio was purely here to fiddle with these plants. After all, the King of Fire didn't know how to refine pills. Seeing a man like Li Zongjio digging up these plants, he couldn't help but feel a little strange. However, as Li Zongjio was an alchemist, there was nothing difficult to explain. The King of Fire was focused on studying the desolate heaven essence in his hand. When he held it in his hand, he could clearly feel its weight. When he swung it around, he felt as if his hands were holding two mountains. What a powerful force! The King of Fire tried smashing it on his hand. Sure enough, he could feel a powerful force surging into his body. However, the King of Fire's body was very strong. The force that entered his body was easily neutralized by the King of Fire. "I'll return it to you." After studying it for a while, the King of Fire didn't have much interest in it, although he felt that it was powerful. He immediately threw the desolate heaven essence to Li Zongjio. So, when the desolate heaven essence left his hand, immediately there was a slight movement from afar. The King of Fire's eyes narrowed slightly as he saw a scarlet-red figure rushing towards him. A part of the figure suddenly stretched out and grabbed the desolate heaven essence, taking it away. Seeing this scene, Li Zongjio was still squatting on the ground, holding a small hoe in his hand. When he saw that his desolate heaven essence had been stolen by someone else, he was also stunned. Who dares to find trouble with this king? The King of Fire's face immediately darkened as killing intent was released from his body. If this thing had been snatched from Li Zongjio's hands, the King of Fire wouldn't have cared. However, before the item could be handed over to Li Zongjio, it was snatched away. Chapter 855. However, the figure that had snatched away the desolate heaven essence did not seem to have any intention of stopping to answer. After the figure landed on the ground, it headed straight for the depths of the forest. This infuriated the King of Fire. Just now, when this guy rushed out, he had already seen clearly what it was. It was a red monkey. The King of Fire stretched out his hand and released an extremely terrifying energy. A fireball flew out from his hand, burning everything in its path. The monkey's back was instantly injured by the fireball, but at this moment, the red monkey used the desolate heaven essence in its hand to block its back. It managed to dissipate quite a bit of the force. However, at this moment he couldn't run around unscrupulously, so he rolled on the ground and stopped. The King of Fire stretched out his hand once again and a force condensed on the monkey and the desolate heaven essence. He wanted to grab both of them. The desolate heaven essence landed in his hands, but the red monkey was taken away by a figure midway. A person landed on the treetops. It blocked the King of Fire's powerful aura. To be able to do this so easily, it was obvious that the person's strength was not inferior to the King of Fire. Li Zongjio placed the hoe back on his waist. He held a pot of Azura Night Demon in his hand. This was a spirit medicine with an extremely murderous nature. In such a place, it was possible to find some strange herbs. Hence, Li Zongjio took them all. After putting away the herbs, he sized up the person who had come. The person who had come was wearing a mask. His hands were behind his back and his feet were 3 inches off the ground. His entire body seemed to be floating on the ground. The monkey just now seemed to be this guy's pet. At this moment, it also climbed onto the man's shoulder and said something to the masked man. It seemed to be telling him something. "How dare you touch my red-haired Yuan monkey? Leave your storage ring behind and scram." The masked man seemed to be very confident. Therefore, when he said this, it was completely a kind of, "I'll let you live this time. If there's a next time, I won't let you off so easily, so you have to be grateful." The Fire Wraith King sneered. "You want this king to scram?" King of Fire didn't speak any nonsense. Suddenly, as if his whole body was on fire, he instantly chased after the masked man. Boom! When the masked man saw that the King of Fire was charging towards him, he didn't dare to be careless. Instead, he took out a hand from behind his back and slammed it forward. A powerful wave of air surged towards the King of Fire, and all the flowers and trees within a radius of 100 feet seemed to have been sliced by a sharp blade. Shwa! Go! King of Fire stopped abruptly. Then, the flames on his body seemed to have grown legs of their own as they charged towards the masked man. Boom! As the flames leaped, the surrounding air seemed to have been burned clean. It was like an extremely violent flame beast descending from the sky. Seeing this, the masked man's face, which was hidden under the mask, changed drastically. He quickly took out both hands and slammed them forward. However, the flames were like a whirlwind that instantly wrapped around the masked man's body. The first thing that was burned clean was the sleeves of the robe where the two arms were. Damn it! The clothes on his arms were burned clean, making the man in front of him look like he was wearing a singlet. His appearance was very comical. "Where's my monkey?" As he looked, the monkey on his shoulder disappeared. Clearly, it was snatched away by the Fire Wraith King just now. The Fire Wraith King grabbed the red-haired monkey in his hand. The red-haired monkey in front of him seemed to be very unconvinced. It stretched out its tail and curled it around King of Fire's arm. At the same time, it opened its mouth and bit down on King of Fire's arm. Smack! The Fire Wraith King slapped the red-haired Yuan monkey on the spot, knocking out its teeth. The red-haired monkey looked aggrieved. "How dare you touch my monkey? Go to hell." Gale slash. When the masked man saw that the Fire Wraith King was beating up the red-haired Yuan monkey, he was furious. At the same time, he unleashed his ultimate move. The terrifying wind blade was like a thunderbolt, and after the sound of the wind, there was actually a ferocious sound of thunder. Rumble! The Fire Wraith King threw the red-haired Yuan monkey in his hand without hesitation. The crimson-haired Yuan monkey was sucked into the wind blade. With a miserable shriek, it was instantly minced into a pile of flesh and blood. What? When the masked man saw that his red-haired monkey was killed by the woman in front of him, he couldn't accept it. "You will pay for my monkey with your life." However, before the masked man made a move, he felt a heat under his feet, as if he had stepped into a terrifying pit of fire. When he looked at the surrounding environment, he was slightly shocked. "Domain. Do you think you're the only one with a domain?" Immediately, the masked man stretched out his hand and tried to summon his domain. However, he found that his power was completely suppressed by the power of the domain in front of him. What? The masked man was shocked. There was only one reason for this situation. The strength of the person in front of him was far above his own. "I'm a dignified third-grade origin emperor. Don't tell me that I'll be killed here today." Immediately, the masked man stomped his foot and tried to rush toward the end of the domain. However, things weren't as simple as he thought. A force easily trapped the masked man, and an endless power of fire instantly poured into the masked man's body. After that, the masked man no longer had any power to resist. He was directly burned to ashes by the flames. Li Zongjio didn't enter the domain, but the King of Fire released the power of the domain for only a moment before he came out. Moreover, he came out alone. His intention was very obvious. That guy was at least a third-grade origin emperor. How could he be killed so quickly? Because Li Zongjio's strength was ordinary, he wasn't targeted by the masked man at the beginning. In addition, Li Zongjio didn't deliberately provoke the masked man, so the masked man's attention was directly on the King of Fire. The King of Fire held the Desolate Heaven Essence in his hand and walked toward Li Zongjio. "I'll return it to you." Li Zongjio took the Desolate Heaven Essence and couldn't help but admire her in his heart. This girl was really ruthless, but at the same time, she was also a person who paid attention to her promises. Well done. It was fine if the Fire Wraith King didn't make a move, but the moment he made a move, he killed a third-grade primitive emperor. If that was the case, it was likely that the surrounding people who wanted to attack the two of them would have already retreated. One had to know that Li Zongjio had been wandering around here for a long time. It was inevitable that they would be targeted. They came to the Black Ghost Mountain at this time. They were all here for the Ghost King's secret realm. At this moment, if he had the opportunity to encounter other people, he could kill them in advance. This would save him the trouble of encountering these people in the future. Moreover, if he killed them now, he would be able to obtain a lot of good things. Therefore, there were actually many enemies lying in wait around Li Zongjio and Li Zongjio. But after the King of Fire's actions, those people didn't dare to make a move. Some of them directly disappeared on the spot. Who would want to meet such a strong person? As night fell, Li Zongjio still hadn't found the entrance to the Ghost King's secret realm. However, as the bright moon hung in the sky, a chilling aura gradually rose over the entire mysterious Ghost Mountain. The cold aura that came from all directions extinguished the torches in front of Li Zongjiao and Li Zongjiao. Oh! A cold aura came from the west. The King of Fire, who was sleeping on the ground, opened his eyes at this moment. As if he was summoned, the King of Fire's eyes lit up. The secret realm has appeared. Chapter 856. The secret realm had appeared. A bright moon hung in the sky. When Li Zongjiao raised his head to look at the sky, he could clearly see several figures rushing forward from the moon. Boom! Boom! At this moment, the entire depths of the Black Ghost Mountain shook violently. The Black Ghost Mountain, which had been suppressed for so long, had finally become terrifying. Let's go! Li Zongjiao and Li Zongjiao moved as well. They were still dozens of miles away from where the cold air was released. They could sense that they were in a relatively remote area, but this was the time to test their strength. The King of Fire did not care too much about Li Zongjiao. If Li Zongjiao was not strong enough, there was no need for him to go through so much trouble to find Li Zongjiao. He could have just found a random guy. Since he found Li Zongjiao, there must be a reason. In fact, Li Zongjiao's speed was not slower than the King of Fire. After using the hidden dragon art, Li Zongjiao's speed was even faster than the King of Fire's. In terms of the agility of his movement technique, it was also extremely exaggerated. His entire figure was so shocked that it was almost like an illusion. Boom! The two of them flew across the sea of trees at high speed. When they saw this scene, the people who had left also chased after them. They finally arrived at this place filled with cold air. The surrounding trees had already been frozen into ice sculptures. This was not caused by the cold air, but by the yin qi. In an extremely cold place, what appeared in front of them was a pool. At the bottom of the pool, there was a ray of light, and a large amount of cold yin energy was flowing out from the bottom of the pool. It was as if someone had opened up a mysterious hole at the bottom of the pool. At this moment, there were many figures gathered around the pool. At a rough glance, there were at least 20 to 30 people. There were also some who were hiding in the dark and did not reveal themselves. There were always some who were cautious. When they encountered such a situation, they wanted to observe for a while. After all, it was necessary to be the first one to test the waters. Moreover, there were also some unknown risks involved in this. The Ghost King's secret realm. Legend had it that this was the place where the Ghost King of the primordial ghost cultivators had fallen. He had placed all the treasures he had collected in his life in this tomb. The tomb was also located in the Black Ghost Mountain. Unlike the other experts who had fallen, the Ghost King of Fire was different. Even after his death, the ancient Ghost King continued to cultivate and grow stronger. In this secret realm, the more people died, the more powerful the Ghost King became. Although everyone knew this, it was clear that the Ghost King was using these treasures to incite people to come and fight for them. In the end, they died in this secret realm. In this way, the Ghost King's power would grow stronger. Perhaps one day, it would be enough to resurrect itself. But even so, after knowing that the treasures in the Ghost King's secret realm were real, someone must have obtained some benefits from it. That was why there were so many evil cultivators approaching the Ghost King's secret realm. None of the people who came were proper masters of the Yuan dynasty. All of them had cultivated some extremely obscure elemental formulas. Therefore, they were so curious about the treasures in this Ghost King's secret realm. One must know that the treasures in this secret realm were very likely to help them rapidly improve their strength. The path of evil cultivators was already very difficult. If they wanted to continue, they could only take risks and find another way. So many evil cultivators. Li Zongjiao could not help but feel a little excited. Speaking of evil cultivators, Li Zongjiao was titled as Evil Lord in his previous life. From this, one could know that the methods and cultivation methods used by Li Zongjiao were naturally extremely obscure. Therefore, when Li Zongjiao encountered so many evil cultivators, it was as if he saw a group of his own shadows. In terms of evil cultivators, there were not many who could be compared to Li Zongjiao. The entrance is here. Let's go. The King of Fire directly jumped. While the rest of the people were watching, the King of Fire did not care about their gazes and directly jumped into the pool. Li Zongjio looked at the King of Fire's impatient temper and helplessly shook his head. Immediately, he also jumped and followed behind the King of Fire. The two of them dived into the pool one after the other. Obviously, the King of Fire was very anxious and impatient. Otherwise, he would not be so direct. He did not even check if there was any danger around before jumping in. Don't let them take the lead. Let's go too. They actually made the first move. Let's go. Let's go too. After seeing someone take the lead, the people behind also became excited. One by one they jumped down. Bang. Plop. When the number of people increased a little, they saw a few water arrows suddenly rushing out from the pool and directly rushing towards them. The people who rushed in behind could not dodge in time. Before it even started, people had already started to kill each other. Some people did not even plan to enter the Ghost King's secret realm. They just wanted to take advantage of the chaos outside and then sit back and collect a generous reward. There were also some who simply waited outside and waited for the people inside to get the treasures before coming out. Then they would rob them halfway. This way there would be no risk. Of course, what would really happen would depend on the situation at the scene. It wasn't something that could be predicted with a simple guess. Li Zongjio and the King of Fire both swooped down in the direction of the light source. A layer of Yuan Qi defense was erected around him, forcing the cold water in the pool out of his body. The two of them landed on an underwater platform. The platform was surrounded by a light curtain. When the two of them passed through the light curtain, they discovered that the light curtain had blocked the water from entering the pool. Water barrier. Li Zongjio looked at the barrier and said, although this barrier wasn't too difficult and could be easily set up by a supreme being expert, the people lying in the Ghost King's secret realm were still able to set up this barrier even though they had been dead for an unknown amount of time. It should be a barrier that was just released recently. It seems that it was automatically activated when the time was up. Li Zongjio glanced at the ground under his feet. In front of them was a tall cave, and the light was only released by the water barrier behind them. In the cave, it was also very dark. They could not see clearly what was going on in front of them. However, the two of them could clearly see the situation in the pool behind them. There was also a man and a woman following closely behind them. However, after this man and woman appeared, they wanted to enter the pool, but they were directly eaten by a ferocious giant beast that suddenly emerged from the pool. Boom! A huge wave of water hit the barrier. The two figures that were about to jump in were directly swallowed into the stomach of the giant beast just now. Deep Frost Serpent Crocodile. Although the other party only appeared for a moment, Li Zongjio saw it clearly and could directly determine what kind of Yuan beast it was. This was an extremely dangerous Yuan beast. Even if it was the overlord of the Yuan beasts on land, if this guy was dragged into the water, it could be easily strangled. In the water, it was almost an invincible existence without any natural enemies. Its attacks were swift and violent. With one bite, it could directly bite you into a pile of pieces. Later on, two people also failed and entered. Similarly, they had also seen the Deep Frost Wyrm crocodile in front of them. Therefore, after landing, they had a lingering fear. However, when they saw Li Zongjio and the woman, they were obviously on guard. Let's go! The King of Fire and Li Zongjio did not take the two of them seriously. They were just Yuan monarchs. Primitive emperors were precious existences no matter where they were, and they were not found everywhere on the streets. Even among those participating in the Ghost King mystic realm this time, the number of primitive emperors was extremely small. What Li Zongjio and the woman had to face was the threat in the mystic realm. Chapter 857. When Li Zongjio and the young lady entered the cave, the two of them heaved a sigh of relief. The two men who had just entered finally heaved a sigh of relief. They looked at each other. Although the two men looked very young, the aura on their bodies was incomparably oppressive. It made people not dare to approach them. It was really shocking to have such power. This place is too dangerous. Are we really going to continue? The young lady asked the young man beside her. The young man had a determined look on his face. There seemed to be a ball of black gas between his eyebrows. Yes, we have to go. Only the things in the Ghost King's secret realm can help us break through the restrictions. Only then can we break free from the shackles in our bodies. The young woman nodded her head in agreement. Let's go. Many heretical cultivators found it hard to stop once they started, because once one walked down this path, it was almost impossible to turn back. It was not a matter of whether one wanted to or not, but because the consequences of this cultivation would always push one forward and constantly push one forward. The only outcome of stopping was death. Those who caught up also fell down one after another. However, many of them were immediately swallowed by the deep frost WRM crocodile in the pool. The deep frost WRM crocodile had been waiting here for a long time. Now, it finally had a chance to have a good meal. The deep frost WRM crocodile alone had killed countless enemies. Li Zongjio and the King of Fire went deep into the cave. Li Zongjio's fingertips flickered with a trace of fire, illuminating the surroundings. After advancing for about 800 meters, they finally arrived in front of a huge underground palace. This is no longer the mysterious Ghost Mountain, Li Zongjio said in a low voice. This underground palace was located in a deep pit below. Li Zongjio could tell from his experience that this place was just a facade. This was just the building on the surface. The real interior of the palace continued to extend underground. The underground palace hidden beneath the earth. However, when they approached the palace, they saw thousands of stone sculptures in the open space in front of the palace. These stone sculptures were strange and varied. Demon creatures? Li Zongjio carefully observed for a while, and discovered that these stone sculptures were actually some demon race creatures. These Devil Clan creatures were not orthodox ancient Devil Clan, such as the ancient Devil Clan puppets in Li Zongjio's Blood Soul realm. These Devil Clan creatures had absorbed Devil Chi for many years and were willing to become the puppets of these Devil Clan, or were forced to become a part of the Devil Clan. That's why such a demonic creature called the Inferior Demon appeared. These things weren't here the last time I was here. King of Fire stopped in his tracks. Although the creatures in front of him were stone statues, King of Fire could clearly feel the terrifying life force contained within them. It was as if they would revive at any moment. If he wanted to get close to the Ghost King mystic realm, he would first have to pass through these inferior demons. So what if there is? Why waste time? Just kill them. Li Zongjio took out the desolate heaven essence and took the lead to charge forward. Indeed, when he approached, the inferior demon statues felt like they were about to fall off. Cracks began to appear on their surface. Li Zongjio did not hesitate when he saw this and immediately smashed down with his staff. Pang! An inferior demon statue was shattered. Before this fellow's body could fully revive, it was smashed to pieces by Li Zongjio. The Fire Wraith King also waved his palm. The domineering palm force directly shattered all the statues in front of him. Rumble! More than 100 inferior demon statues were destroyed, but these inferior demon statues would eventually revive. More than 1,000 inferior demon statues erupted at the same time. Gargoyles. They were also known as rock devils. Their bodies were made of stone, and their bodies were abnormally hard. As long as they had a single breath, they would never stop attacking. Furthermore, these rock devils did not feel anything, and only received the command to attack non-stop. Many rock devils rushed towards Li Zongjio and Li Zongjio. Their goal was to prevent outsiders from entering the city. However, these rock devils' combat power was about the same as the Yuan sect cultivator. They were completely unable to stop Li Zongjio and Li Zongjio's footsteps. They easily broke through the rock devil's defensive circle. Boom! When Li Zongjio and Li Zongjio rushed out, there was already a mountain of stone behind them. At the same time, a terrifying flame appeared. No matter where they went, they would turn into roasted stone. Under the control of the Fire Wraith King, the rock devils retreated one after another. When the two of them arrived in front of the large hall and stepped on the stone, the rock devil army behind them suddenly stopped and returned to their original positions. This Ghost King's strength is not bad. Li Zongjio had explored many places in his previous life, but he had never come into contact with the abilities of a ghost cultivator. However, when the King of Fire heard Li Zongjio's evaluation, he felt that Li Zongjio was praising this ancient ghost king, such a mysterious expert. From your tone, it seems that this kind of power has only just entered your eyes. The Fire Wraith King glanced at Li Zongjio in a provocative manner. It's all right. Not really, it's just a little special. Li Zongjio said indifferently. However, at this moment, he glanced at the King of Fire. Li Zongjio had a feeling that the Fire Wraith King had changed slightly after entering this place. As for where the change came from, Li Zongjio couldn't tell for now. It was just that the form and style had changed. Just now, he even provoked Li Zongjio. This was not an ordinary provocation, but a real provocation. This is the place. Unlock the restriction in front of this door and wait for me outside. If you continue to walk inside, you may die here. The King of Fire said. There were 2 handprints on the door. Obviously, someone had to place their hand on the door in order to open it. Could it be that you have some unspeakable secret in here? Li Zongjio looked at the King of Fire in front of him and said. The King of Fire didn't say much and just put his hand on the door. Glancing at Li Zongjio didn't say much and directly walked up and put his hand on the door. Both of their palms felt a wave of warm energy sweeping towards them. Then, a kacha sound was heard. The door was easily opened. The King of Fire's eyes revealed a trace of surprise and excitement. He was also extremely happy. However, just as the King of Fire was about to enter, a roar came from behind him. He saw 4 figures, wrapped in the terrifying power of lightning, rushing over and tearing the surrounding rock devils into pieces. Haha, in front of us 4 siblings, no one can stop our footwork. The 4 people who rushed over were actually together. The 4 of them all had lightning elemental energy. It was unknown how such abnormal elemental energy was cultivated. How could they be so powerful? In short, the 4 of them seemed to be wrapped in wind and thunder as they rushed over and finally landed in front of Li Zongjio and the King of Fire. You 2 trash, leave behind your storage rings and scram. The 4 of them were already old and looked to be in their 40s. The oldest one was close to 60 years old. Therefore, when they saw Li Zongjio and the King of Fire, they waved their hands in disdain. Just now, it was the 2 of them who jumped into the pool first. They had never seen such stupid people. Usually, this kind of person would die the quickest. Trash? The King of Fire originally wanted to go in first, but the words of these people also piqued the King of Fire's interest. Li Zongjio looked at the 4 people in front of him. The strength of these 4 people could be considered to be very good. All of them were in the Origin Emperor realm. Similar to this kind of group, the elemental arts they cultivated were usually one. Once they were combined, their power would be even greater. However, it was useless no matter how strong their combined strength was. This was because they had angered the Fire Wraith King before them. Chapter 858. Looks like this little girl wants to experience the might of the 4 saints of Huayan Mountain. 3rd younger sister, go and take her head. The man in the lead said calmly. Li Zongjio was surprised to hear that these people had given him such an ugly nickname. The 4 saints of Huayan Mountain. Could there be a more stupid nickname than this? One of the girls walked out, and a bolt of lightning immediately appeared in her palm. Then she suddenly attacked the King of Fire. The lightning bolts crazily surged towards the King of Fire. However, the King of Fire's figure had already disappeared. Boom! He suddenly appeared in front of the girl. The King of Fire's palm emitted a fiery glow as he slapped the girl's face. Immediately, a terrifying wave of fire energy surged into the girl's body. Even his protective elemental energy was of no use. The face of the 3rd sister of the 4 saints of the Huayan Mountains burned with flames, burning the person to ashes. 3rd sister. In just a breath's time, they saw their 3rd sister burn to such a miserable state. The other 3 could no longer sit still. Attack together and kill this woman. Instantly, the lightning array released a terrifying amount of lightning energy from each of their bodies, and they all charged towards the King of Fire. However, the King of Fire's movements also became extremely fierce. His attacks were also extremely vicious. In an instant he swept past one of them. Boom! 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 The three of them also began to burn with flames. Faced with the flames on their bodies, there was no way to extinguish them. In the end, the three of them were burned to ashes. Li Zongjio glanced at them. Even their storage rings couldn't escape the King of Fire's flames. They were all easily burned clean. Seeing this, Li Zongjio was slightly surprised. Li Zongjio really couldn't figure out the King of Fire's own flame power. What level of existence was it exactly? It seemed like it could burn anything. However, Li Zongjio had never seen a fire with a similar attribute to King of Fire's. It was as if this fire was cultivated by King of Fire himself. After dealing with these people in front of him, the expression on the King of Fire's face was incomparably calm as he turned around and entered the door. Li Zongjio followed closely behind. When the two figures disappeared, a few more people arrived at this place. I never would have thought that those two youngsters would be so terrifying. They even managed to kill the 4 saints of the Splendor Cloud Mountain. That's not the main point. The main point is that it was so easy to kill him. There was no hesitation at all. He didn't even last for 3 breaths of time. Several people discussed with each other. However, they felt very regretful about the fate of the 4 saints of the Splendor Cloud Mountain. At the same time, it served as a reminder for them. At the very least, they wouldn't foolishly go against those 2 big shots. Even if they were watching from afar, they would have taken a detour. The people who came later also triggered the mechanism on the door and walked in one after another. They were all people who had been here before. Li Zongjio and the King of Fire walked on the same path. The King of Fire seemed to be in a hurry to find something. He seemed to be very familiar with the path around him. Li Zongjio took the opportunity to take a look at some of the strange halls. Within these halls, there were statues of ghosts. In front of each statue was an altar of incense. Just walking down from the first floor, there were nearly 20 ghost statues. If one entered these rooms and activated some restrictions, they might be able to obtain something. The King of Fire didn't seem to care about the things under these ghost statues. He directly walked down to the second floor. The path to the second floor was also guarded by 2 rock devil statues. However, these 2 statues were smashed to pieces by the King of Fire in just 3 moves. They didn't serve as any obstruction. Why is she in such a hurry? What is she trying to do? Li Zongjio looked at the King of Fire's figure as he entered. Along the way, the King of Fire didn't communicate with Li Zongjio. Previously, the King of Fire would occasionally chat with Li Zongjio. However, after entering the secret realm, his temperament seemed to have changed greatly. He became extremely cold. At this moment, many people had already entered the palace of the secret realm. There were many fights and conflicts. The mountain ghost also came with his female disciple. Although the mountain ghost's strength was considered decent in the profound ghost city, in the Ghost King's secret realm, he had to tuck his tail between his legs and behave himself. Outside the pool, a figure appeared under the shade of the moonlight. He lifted the hat on the figure's head. The figure's head was completely bald. However, the skin on the head was full of tadpole-like symbols. "You're here too, right?" The man touched the symbols on the face. Then he revealed an incomparably sinister smile. He leaped into the pool in front of him and plunged straight down into it. Boom! When the man rushed into the pool of water, he was shocked. The deep frost W-arm crocodile swam directly towards the man. When it sensed the man's appearance, the deep frost W-arm crocodile opened its mouth and directly absorbed the surrounding water. The man actually followed the water flow and took the initiative to rush towards the deep frost W-arm crocodile. Then, a pitch-black mystic light suddenly curled around his fist. Boom! The fist smashed into the deep frost W-arm crocodile's head. The deep frost W-arm crocodile's body was immediately trapped by the black mystic light. It was like an invisible rope, but also like an all-pervasive force. As the black mystic light wrapped around the deep frost W-arm crocodile, the deep frost W-arm crocodile became a pile of white bones. In its stomach, many undigested human heads sank to the bottom of the pool. The bald man also came into the cave. Then he directly walked in. At this moment, the skeleton of the deep frost WRM crocodile slowly sank. This deep frost WRM crocodile, which could devour an Origin Emperor expert, was so easily killed. Inside the palace of the secret realm, the King of Fire, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped and turned around to look behind Li Zongjio. There seemed to be an unprecedented seriousness in his eyes. Li Zongjio had never seen the King of Fire with such an expression. It was as if the King of Fire was facing a great enemy. "Let's go. There's no time," the King of Fire hurriedly said. After saying that, he actually turned around and quickly walked in front of him. However, Li Zongjio stood on the spot without moving. Instead, he took out the Desolate Heaven Essence. "Isn't it just walking down? What's the big deal?" The King of Fire looked at Li Zongjio's actions with a trace of horror in his eyes. Then, Li Zongjio smashed the Desolate Heaven Essence into the floor. Boom! A huge hole suddenly appeared in the floor. Originally, the interior of the Secret Realm Palace was reinforced by the Yuan inscription arrays of the main characters. But for the Desolate Heaven Essence in Li Zongjio's hands, it was very easy to go down. After all, with the Desolate Heaven Essence's power, it would be easy to smash the staircase. Who said that one had to take the stairs? The King of Fire was clearly surprised by Li Zongjio's actions. This was indeed out of everyone's expectations. Li Zongjio did not know what the King of Fire was worried about or what he was looking for, but since Li Zongjio had come here, he could not return empty-handed. The Southern Nation ring in his hand also gave Li Zongjio some guidance. There was a large amount of Yuan stones below. Furthermore, the Yuan stones were of a high grade. This was also the reason why Li Zongjio had taken action. Li Zongjio jumped down. The King of Fire also jumped down with Li Zongjio. However, when Li Zongjio landed, he saw something that lit up in front of him. Yuan stones. Dozens of high-grade Yuan stones were piled up in a corner. Even in the darkness, there was still a glimmer of light shining. "I was the one who discovered it first." Li Zongjio did not say a word as he put away the 30 over Yuan stones. Chapter 859. However, when Li Zongjio finished collecting the Yuan stones, a strange sound suddenly came from the room. Then, a sharp aura rushed towards Li Zongjio. Boom! It was a rock ghost that looked like a bat. However, this bat was at least 3 meters in size. A wing flapped towards Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio used the Desolate Heaven Essence to shatter the rock ghost bat's body. Peng! You want to sneak attack your grandfather with such little ability? Li Zongjio easily destroyed the rock ghost bat. Looking at the King of Fire's figure that had already disappeared, it was clear that the King of Fire was one step ahead. Looking at him, Yi Shiwen was anxious. Li Zongjio, on the other hand, was not anxious. The third basement level was like a maze. Or it could be said that every level of the Ghost King Mystic Realm was a huge maze. However, the first 2 levels were led by the King of Fire, so it was naturally very fast. At every corner, there was a high chance of treasures, such as Yuan stones, elixirs, and even very precious rune stones. Of course, there were also terrifying rock ghosts that attacked. Li Zongjio picked up a few rune stones. The so-called rune stone was a Yuan stone that could inscribe an entire Yuan rune array inside. Such a rune stone required a very high level of attainment. Furthermore, the energy of the rune stone could be continuously provided. As long as one had enough Yuan stones, the rune stone could continuously produce an effect. Furthermore, the effect of the rune stone was rather convenient. For example, if the rune stone in one's hand had the effect of a defensive array, one could activate it with a thought. It would protect one's body. If the rune stone's effect was a flight array, one would be able to soar into the sky without expending any energy. Of course, the formations that could be engraved on the talisman stone were relatively simple formations. A truly powerful formation was already extremely difficult to set up in the outside world. If one wanted to engrave the formation on the talisman stone, wouldn't it be even more difficult? These talisman stones can be given to Li Yun to study. If she can make them, then everyone will have a talisman stone. It will be more powerful than any kind of Yuan tool. Li Zongjio thought in his heart that it would be difficult to mass-produce it, but at least he didn't rule out the possibility. Therefore, Li Zongjio kept the few talisman stones that he had. Until now, Li Zongjio had only found 5 rune stones in this labyrinth. "Kid, hand over the talisman stone in your hand." A voice sounded from behind Li Zongjio. Then, Li Zongjio turned around and looked at the person behind him. A man holding a short black blade, which looked like a dagger, stared at Li Zongjio in front of him. A dark red glow flickered on the dagger. Evidently, this man had killed many people before this. "You want my talisman stone? Then come and take it yourself." Li Zongjio said indifferently. He had been wandering around this area for quite some time. Logically speaking, he should have met other people. Therefore, it was not strange for someone to appear here. When he heard Li Zongjio's words, the man licked the blood on his dagger and stared at the person in front of him. Finally, the man decisively made his move. In an instant, his figure seemed to have turned into an illusion and directly transformed into several figures. All of them charged towards Li Zongjio at the same time. Their sharp auras were locked onto Li Zongjio. Buddha's palm. The incomparably domineering palm energy seemed to have the power to penetrate the mountains and seas. It directly destroyed the person in front of him, as well as the surrounding walls. Boom! The man's legs were hit by Li Zongjio's Buddha's palm. Clearly, in that instant, the man wanted to jump up to avoid the power of the palm. However, the speed of the palm was too fast, so it directly chopped off the man's legs. His body lay on the pile of rocks. At this moment, he was in a state of near death. Looking at Li Zongjio in front of him, his heart was filled with disbelief. How did Li Zongjio possess such terrifying strength? When the man was hit by the palm just now, he had nowhere to hide. It was as if the palm was originally aimed at him. He did not know how to block it at all. In fact, he could not even escape. So this is the meaning of the Buddha's palm. Li Zongjio felt that he had somewhat grasped the Buddha's palm. The more people he killed, the heavier his sins. Naturally, the power of the Buddha's palm would become more powerful. Moreover, once you were locked onto by the Buddha's palm technique, you would basically be unable to escape. This feeling was similar to the power of the thunder calamity. Once you were locked onto, you could only accept the judgment. If you could not block it, only death would await you. In the pile of rocks, the dagger in the man's hand was shining brightly. Li Zongjio directly picked up the dagger and directly cut off the man's head. Fresh blood splattered all over the ground. Daring to have ideas about Li Zongjio, such behavior had to pay the price. Li Zongjio also taught him a lesson. He must remember that the next time he met Li Zongjio, he must take a detour. Although there might not be a next time, for Li Zongjio, he could live again. Maybe this guy could do it too. That was very thoughtful of him. At the same time, Li Zongjio also took the guy's storage ring. This guy had killed a lot of people before, and in the storage ring, there were a lot of vitality stones, which made Li Zongjio a rich harvest. Wait a minute. Li Zongjio suddenly stopped in his tracks. Why do I have to go through so much trouble to find and kill monsters myself? Li Zongjio almost forgot that he was the evil lord. Why did he have to be so low-key? Didn't he have ready-made people to help him collect the things in this secret realm? He just needed to rob them. Anyway, this kind of thing was often done in his previous life, so there was nothing wrong with it. If they did not give it to him, he could only kill them. Rather than slowly collecting these things here, he might as well take the things in other people's hands and bring them to him. Some people said that it was too immoral to do so, and that it was ungentlemanly. They did not provoke you, but you still want to kill them. Isn't that too immoral? In the face of such doubts, Li Zongjio only had one sentence to say to them. Come over here and say it again. In the palace of the secret realm, Mountain Ghost had picked up a lot of good things along the way. In this Ghost King's secret realm, the most precious thing was not vitality stones, but something called the Dark Origin Bead. The effect of these Dark Origin Beads was similar to vitality stones. However, they could provide a lot of help to cultivators. They could easily help them break through their own realms and increase the speed of their cultivation. It would let them feel how easy it was to cultivate. It was said that the Dark Origin bead was the cultivation source of the ancient Ghost King, so it was also very precious. Coincidentally, Mountain Ghost had found a Dark Origin bead just now. However, he had no choice but to sacrifice his female disciple. The Dark Origin bead was a very dangerous item. In the beginning, it would absorb the flesh and blood of people before it could be taken away. Of course, if one's strength was strong enough to resist the devouring power of the Dark Origin bead, then one could directly take the Dark Origin bead. After the Mountain Ghost obtained the Darkness Origin bead, he wanted to leave. Previously, he was able to escape unscathed because he was careful and not greedy. To be able to do this, he was naturally someone who could achieve great things. Therefore, Mountain Ghost wanted to leave immediately. However, just as Mountain Ghost was walking toward the exit, he happened to see a figure in front of him. The figure seemed to be walking aimlessly, but also seemed to be unable to find a specific direction. Isn't this the kid from Dark Ghost City? Before I leave, let's do one more job. Chapter 860. The Mountain Ghost mustered up his courage to do one more thing before leaving. Immediately, the Mountain Ghost shrank to the side. He could naturally see that the kid before him was only at the Yuan Monarch realm. Although the Mountain Ghost Patriarch's cultivation over the years was still at the 2nd grade Yuan Monarch realm, he would be able to break through to the 3rd grade Yuan Monarch realm or even the 4th grade Yuan Monarch realm if he refined the Dark Origin bead after leaving this place. A bright future awaited the Mountain Ghost Patriarch. Naturally, he didn't have to be so careless when dealing with a Yuan Monarch realm kid. However, the strength of the other lady couldn't be underestimated, so he had to be more careful. After observing for a while, he realized that Li Zongjio was alone. The Mountain Ghost immediately held 2 runestones in his hands. One of the runestones was called the Ghost Curse. Once it was used, the power within it was enough to make one lose their sense of direction for a short period of time, causing them to fall into a state of confusion and headache. In fact, it was a type of spiritual attack array formation. The other runestone of the Mountain Ghost's hands was called the Substitute Talisman. At the very least, it could confuse the opponent and block a blade. He only needed 1 second to chop off this brat's head. He didn't ask for anything else. He just wanted to kill Li Zongjio in one move. That was the most important thing. Here he comes. The Mountain Ghost leaped out when Li Zongjio approached. At the same time, he threw the 2 runestones in his hands at Li Zongjio. Ghost Curse. The power of the curse technique exploded instantly. Boom. The overbearing power enveloped Li Zongjio's body as an extremely sharp mind power rushed towards Li Zongjio. However, Li Zongjio wasn't affected by the attack of the Ghost Curse, because the power of the Ghost Curse's mind power was limited. In order to hurt Li Zongjio's mind power, one had to be at least at the Yuan Monarch realm. Li Zongjio did not expect that someone would sneak up on him. Moreover, the person who came to ambush them seemed to be in primitive emperor powerhouse. It was Li Zongjio's first time seeing such a spineless and dignified primitive emperor. Fuck, are you shameless? You're already in the primitive emperor realm, and you're still doing this kind of sneak attack. Li Zongjio immediately cursed. Such insidious behavior had almost nothing to do with one's cultivation. It was simply caused by one's character. Such a thing should be killed directly. What? It didn't work. When Hilgos saw that Li Zongjio was actually able to remain conscious under the effects of the Ghost Curse and was even cursing loudly, he instantly realized that Li Zongjio was much more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. Li Zongjio naturally wouldn't be polite with this Mountain Ghost. Buddha Palm. He threw out another Buddha Palm that he had just learned. It was as if Hilgos saw several towers pressing down on him. Boom. The rune stone in his hand shattered. Even the Substitute Talisman couldn't resist the power of the other party. When the aura descended, Hilgos was stunned on the spot. At this moment, it was as if he had been hit by the Ghost Curse. He couldn't move, and he didn't even have the thought of escaping. Fortunately, the Substitute Talisman in his hand helped him to withstand the attack. Forest Demon Walking Stick. Hilgos, who came back to his senses, threw out the walking stick in his hand. The walking stick immediately turned into an ancient tree. the thick and powerful roots rushed towards Li Zongjio and covered Li Zongjio's head with a boom. So many moves. Li Zongjio made a move and found that it was blocked by this guy. He took a look and realized that it was the effect of the rune stone. Looking at the entrenched roots, Li Zongjio's hands were itching to try out the effects of the talisman stone. He casually fumbled for a rune stone. After injecting a bit of origin energy into it to activate it, he immediately felt a terrifying power attacking him. Boom! The surroundings were filled with terrifying flames. It was a flame bomb. The power of the flame bomb blew up a lot of the roots, but it didn't succeed in rescuing Li Zongjio. Hee kid, it's your bad luck to have met me. When Hilghost saw that Li Zongjio was trapped by his instrument, he felt even more proud. In order to study how to deal with the enemy's moves, Hilghost had spent a lot of money on himself to ensure his own safety. There was nothing more important than staying alive. No matter how strong one's cultivation was, they still needed to stay alive. A metal hook appeared in Hilghost's hand. This metal hook was specially made by a craftsman. Moreover, a considerable amount of poison had been poured into the metal hook. By relying on the strength of this metal hook, it could easily cut open a person's stomach, especially after his opponent was controlled by his forest demon walking stick. Old man, I advise you to put down your storage ring and leave quickly. This is the last chance I'm giving you. Otherwise, you'll regret it. Li Zongjio seemed to have a hard time saying these words. However, Hilghost's ancestors seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. He didn't bother with Li Zongjio anymore. The long hook in his hand directly slashed at Li Zongjio. Clang! The poisonous hook in Li Zongjio's hand was smashed into pieces. It was as if Li Zongjio's body was made of iron. At the same time, a black flame burned around Li Zongjio's body. The forest demon walking stick that turned into a tree was burned to ashes by Li Zongjio. Boom! Li Zongjio finally broke free. Mountain Spirit Ghost Palm. Hilghost's ancestor knew that Li Zongjio wasn't simple. Although the metal hook in his hand was broken, he didn't give up on killing Li Zongjio. He directly slammed his palm at Li Zongjio's head. Moreover, it was a solid strike. Bang! It's done! When the palm hit, Hilghost's ancestor clearly felt that Li Zongjio's body had been smashed into pieces. However, in the next moment, Hilghost's gaze froze. Clang! A talisman stone fell to the ground. Substitute talisman. What Hilghost's ancestor hit was merely a substitute talisman. Shit! Hilghost's ancestor muttered to himself. However, it was too late. Li Zongjio immediately took out the desolate heaven essence in his hand and slammed it down on Hilghost's ancestor's head. Boom! The patriarch of the Hilghost tribe received a heavy blow to his head and almost fainted. Fortunately, he had been prepared for this for many years. He was also wearing a defensive inner armor. However, the part of his head that was hit was the part where his head was. Hilghost's ancestor spat out a mouthful of blood. Li Zongjio didn't say another word. He raised the desolate heaven essence in his hand and slammed it down again. Bang, 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 until Hilghost's ancestor's body was smashed into a pile of mush. The dignified Hilghost's ancestor of Mystic Ghost City had been turned into a pile of trash and beaten to such a state. Even if he died here, no one would know. Why did you have to make me covered in blood? Li Zongjio wiped the blood off his hands on Hilghost's ancestor's clothes. Then he took away all the items in Hilghost's ancestor's hands. Oh, is this the darkness origin source? Li Zongjio saw a small black elemental bead within the storage ring of the mountain ghost old ancestor. This bead evoked Li Zongjio's memories. If I'm not mistaken, this thing belongs to Wu Tian from my previous life. Li Zongjio thought to himself. In his previous life, Wu Tian was also a supreme being expert. He was very good at using the power of darkness. Even to Li Zongjio, Wu Tian was a very strong opponent. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Li Zongjio would try his best not to provoke Wu Tian. What Sky Shaman was best at was using the darkness origin source to recruit disciples. Of course, in his previous life, Li Zongjio was so strong that even Wu Tian didn't dare to provoke him. Chapter 861. Li Zongjio kept the darkness origin bead. On the other hand, the origin soul of the darkness dragon soul in his body seemed to be very eager for the darkness origin bead. After sensing the darkness dragon soul's desire, Li Zongjio's eyes lit up. Li Zongjio didn't know how to cultivate the darkness dragon soul in his body. Although it gave Li Zongjio the Hell Prajna technique, it was like a burden that was trapped in his body most of the time. Li Zongjio planned to study this guy after he became stronger. Now that this guy had taken the initiative to appear, Li Zongjio knew that this kind of darkness attribute treasure was fatally attractive to this guy. Wait until I get out. I'll see what other secrets you have. Li Zongjio kept the darkness origin bead for the time being. He didn't have time to study this darkness dragon soul now. However, since this guy had made such a move, Li Zongjio needed to collect more darkness origin beads. He went down another floor. Li Zongjio hadn't even opened his mouth on his way here when he was entangled by the mountain ghost and had a fierce battle with it. Who would have thought that the talisman stone could produce such an effect? Therefore, Li Zongjio felt that it was very difficult to deal with him. However, Li Zongjio also experienced the effects of the rune stone. Originally, according to Li Zongjio's temperament, he was too lazy to use these things. The effect of the rune stone just now was also a fresh taste for Li Zongjio. He arrived at the 4th floor underground. The light in this bunker was very dim. Moreover, he could often hear some extremely soft sounds coming from this extremely dark corner. However, these sounds were often accompanied by some miserable screams. Obviously, there must be a relatively powerful creature in the vicinity of the 4th floor. Li Zongjio found a stone and placed it directly at the entrance of the 4th floor. He didn't want to go any further. He just wanted to collect the toll here. It didn't take long for business to arrive. 3 figures walked down from the 3rd floor. When they saw someone move a rock in the middle of the road, as if he was going to rob them, the 3 of them immediately laughed coldly. Who dares to make such a joke here? Of the 3 people who came, 2 were men and 1 was a woman. One of them was a man and a woman who were slightly younger. Judging by their attire, they should be a couple. The other person was the one who spoke, an old man. Generally speaking, those who practiced some crooked cultivation methods would either kill their family members or drag their family members down with them. Basically, there were only a few situations that could happen. The people in front of him were the second type of people. Hand over half of what you have, and I'll let you leave safely. Li Zongjio thought for a moment and said. He sat on the rock, as if saying that he wouldn't let them leave if they didn't give him what he wanted. When these words came out, the 3 of them looked at each other. This was a little too arrogant. If you want to rob, you are only one person. You actually came out to rob the 3 of them. Isn't this a little too much? You are a little too arrogant. Before the old man could speak, the middle-aged man behind him couldn't take it anymore. You're courting death. How dare you rob my chaotic wave sect? See if I don't cripple you today. The middle-aged man immediately circulated his yuan power. Surging energy condensed in his palm and directly slapped towards Li Zongjio. Chaotic origin palm. Li Zongjio smiled faintly in his heart when he saw the other party make a move. This way, he would have a reason to snatch all of the other party's items. Boom. The chaotic origin palm landed, but it only shattered the rock that Li Zongjio was sitting on. The middle-aged man was only a grade 5 yuan monarch. In front of Li Zongjio, he posed no threat at all. What? He actually dodged it. The middle-aged man saw Li Zongjio's figure appear unscathed not far away. A trace of horror flashed in his eyes. Have a taste of my palm technique too. Li Zongjio raised his hand and sent a pagoda palm towards the middle-aged man, who knew that he didn't control the strength of this palm and it directly included the 3 people in front of him. Bang, bang, bang. The 3 of them were sent flying in succession. Under this terrifying power, all of them were heavily injured and were crushed one after another. They couldn't withstand Li Zongjio's pagoda palm at all. After the palm, Li Zongjio looked at the 3 people lying on the ground with serious injuries. It seemed that he had used too much force. Brat, how dare you touch the people of my chaotic wave sect? My chaotic wave sect will definitely not let you off. The middle-aged man clutched his chest and said viciously to Li Zongjio. Shut up. The old man hurriedly scolded. They were already so old. Did they still have no brains? They were beaten to such a state, but they still dared to be so stubborn. This was the Ghost King's secret realm palace. If they were killed here, no one would even know where their bodies were. How could they not let the other party off? Staying alive was the most important thing. I'm sorry, sir. This is what the three of us got. Please kindly accept it. The old man hurriedly took off his storage ring and handed it to Li Zongjio respectfully. Look at you. You're so sensible. I'm too embarrassed to continue. Seeing the old man in front of him being so sensible, Li Zongjio was also too embarrassed to kill him. Hearing Li Zongjio's words, the old man sighed in relief. After being around for so long, he naturally knew the hobbies of these experts. What they liked the most was face. As long as you were humble enough, the stronger the person, the less likely they would care about you. They might even treat you like a fart and let you go. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I'll wait. I'll leave now. Although the middle-aged man was not convinced and wanted to continue fighting with Li Zongjio, he was forcefully dragged away by his wife. The old man also hurriedly pushed him away. If they stayed, the three of them might die here. The number of people who had come here was simply too many. Therefore, they had to be careful. There are actually 7 darkness origin beads. This is not bad. Li Zongjio put the storage ring away. The storage ring couldn't be placed inside anymore. Otherwise, there would be conflicts between the storage rings. If that happened, it would be troublesome. The things inside might be directly damaged. The darkness origin beads were the darkness origin beads. These things were like supreme-grade origin stones to elemental force cultivators. Li Zongjio did not take a closer look at what was inside. Instead, he continued to wait for the next wave of people to arrive. As for the 3 people who left from Hunbo sect, they did not go far. They continued to hibernate on the 3rd floor. They also found a safe place to recuperate. With Li Zongjio's strength, he would definitely meet this opponent. You are so stupid. Can't you see that this person's strength is far above yours and mine? The old man pointed at the middle-aged man and scolded him. Father, don't say that about Brother Yong. Brother Yong also wants to protect our things. Seeing the angry old man, the woman hurriedly went forward to persuade him. Although the things have been taken away, there will always be a chance to get them back. When that kid and the others are injured, it will be time for you and me to get them back. Now, let's heal your injuries first. The old man said. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied with the behavior of this person called Brother Yong. Just now, he had almost lost his life. No one knew how much time had passed. In short, Li Zongjio had intercepted a total of 6 waves of people here. Among these 6 waves of people, except for the old man called Hunbo sect who was slightly more sensible at the beginning, the rest were all brainless. They wanted to fight with Li Zongjio and rob Li Zongjio of everything in his hands. Therefore, Li Zongjio had specially brought over a stone and placed their heads on it. A total of 11 heads were placed on the stone. Li Zongjio's pockets were also very full. Just as Li Zongjio was about to continue hunting, suddenly he felt a violent energy gathering under his feet. Boom! His feet shook violently. Li Zongjio was very familiar with one of the forces. It seems that girl is in trouble. Li Zongjio originally thought that the girl's matter had nothing to do with him and just left. However, his body involuntarily stood up from the stone and quickly rushed forward. Chapter 862. As Li Zongjio moved, he was also thinking about what he was doing. However, since he had already started moving, Li Zongjio couldn't just turn around and leave. Everything was according to his heart. 5th underground floor. In this space, Li Zongjio could clearly feel that the level was completely different. In front of him, there was a boiling force, surrounded by ruins of vegetation. According to the previous design, it should be a place like a garden. In the center, there was a huge magma pool. In the middle of the magma pool, there was a statue. The statue's feet were stepping on the magma, and its head was covered in mud. At this moment, what could be seen was that 2 figures were confronting each other in front of the statue. The surroundings were in a mess, and it was obvious that an extremely fierce battle had just broken out. Li Zongjio also saw the two figures confronting each other. However, the two of them directly ignored Li Zongjio. After hiding for so long, it's impossible for you to take back your real body. Today, you'd better be prepared to be refined by me. A bald man with runes drawn all over his body said coldly. When he said this, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile, as if he had already made up his mind. Today, the King of Fire would not be able to escape. The person in the air opposite him was the King of Fire. As for the Fire Wraith King, he seemed to have suffered quite a bit of injury in the confrontation just now. When he saw the man opposite him, he was extremely displeased. When Li Zongjio saw the bald man, his eyes suddenly widened. "Wu Tian!" Li Zongjio exclaimed. Even someone as composed as Li Zongjio couldn't help but yell out in shock. The bald man seemed to have heard Li Zongjio's voice and turned his head to look at Li Zongjio. At this moment of distraction, the King of Fire lashed out with a flaming whip in his hand. It was bound to hit the bald man's head. The bald man's reaction was also very fast. He raised his hand and caught the whip in his hand. "Seems like you've found a good lover in the human world. Your taste is really low," the bald man said with a hint of mockery. The two of them once again engaged in an intense battle, causing the surrounding magma to continuously spurt out. On the other hand, Li Zongjio stood in the same place. He seemed to have been hit in the head, and even Li Zongjio couldn't accept it in his heart. The man in front of him was the incomparably powerful Wu Tian in his previous life. Although the two didn't have much interaction, Sky Wu himself was quite a strange existence. No matter who it was, he didn't want to make friends with him. He was very mysterious. Even Li Zongjio had heard of Sky Wu's reputation, so he was anxious to meet him. They had met several times and exchanged pointers once, but there was no clear winner. However, Li Zongjio already knew that Sky Wu wasn't someone to be trifled with. Wu Tian actually appeared here. Li Zongjio began to recall that in his previous life, Sky Shaman's most commonly used method to win over subordinates was the Darkness Origin Bead. It seemed that Sky Shaman had obtained the Darkness Origin Bead from this place. That was how Sky Shaman was able to become so powerful in the future. It seemed that he had obtained a lot of benefits from this place. At the same time, Li Zongjio was also curious. Why hadn't he heard of the King of Fire's name? With the King of Fire's strength, he would definitely succeed in a short time in the Xingyan dynasty. With the King of Fire's realm, it wouldn't take long for him to break through to the Supremacy realm. Once he broke through, the King of Fire's strength and reputation would more or less enter Li Zongjio's eyes. However, after Li Zongjio's cultivation broke through in his previous life, he had never heard of the King of Fire's name. Either this meant that the King of Fire had hidden himself very well, or this King of Fire had been killed by someone else. Considering the current situation, the current King of Fire was indeed no match for Wu Tian. Wu Tian casually clenched his fist, and a rune force appeared in his hand. Then, a terrifying power was released, as if he had the help of a god. Under the attack of his opponent, the King of Fire's defense seemed to be losing ground bit by bit. Suddenly, a shockwave swept towards Li Zongjio. Boom! Li Zongjio's figure instantly retreated. Under the shockwave, Li Zongjio was also pushed back 2 steps by the shockwave. The two people in front of him were currently competing with each other, using their strongest elemental energy to attack each other. That was why such a huge shockwave had been created. On the other side, Sky Shaman looked at the Fire Wraith King through the powerful shockwave. The King of Fire also looked at Wu Tian with an extremely cold gaze. However, Wu Tian gave the King of Fire too much pressure. Even if the King of Fire used all his strength, he was unable to threaten Wu Tian at all. This little girl is no match for Wu Tian. Li Zongjio looked at the King of Fire. Although he was gnashing his teeth, there was nothing he could do. In the next moment, Wu Tian's fist hit the King of Fire, and the King of Fire was sent flying. Bang! The King of Fire immediately let out a low cry, and spat out a mouthful of blood. He fell to the ground not far from Li Zongjio. Cough cough. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of the King of Fire's mouth, and he sat on the ground, paralyzed. Wu Tian's figure slowly descended, and he came in front of the King of Fire, looking down at the King of Fire. You and I are one. Why are you in such a hurry to separate? Wu Tian looked at the King of Fire and said indifferently, Bah, you want to sink into the devil? Even if I have to kill myself, I won't let you succeed. The King of Fire stared fiercely at Wu Tian and said in a deep voice, Want to die? You think it's that easy? Wu Tian said calmly, Come, become a part of my power sacrifice. Wu Tian didn't want to delay any longer, and he directly reached out his hand. Suddenly, a terrifying power fell on the King of Fire, and the King of Fire was restrained, unable to move. He looked like he was in great pain. Cough cough, I didn't expect the famous Wu Tian to like to bully women so much. Li Zongjio said disdainfully as he stood up. When Wu Tian heard Li Zongjio's words, he raised his head. When he saw Li Zongjio, his eyes were filled with anger. How dare a mere Yuan King cultivator act so arrogantly in front of him? As for why Li Zongjio knew his name, it was probably because the King of Fire had told him. Therefore, Wu Tian didn't find it strange, but he wasn't interested in Li Zongjio. Only the King of Fire in front of him could pique his interest. Have you been bewitched by this woman? Do you know her true identity? Wu Tian sneered, but the way he looked at Li Zongjio changed again. But today, I'll kill one more person. Immediately, Wu Tian threw a punch at Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio casually threw out a talisman stone and immediately blocked the opponent's attack. Boom! The talisman stone was instantly crushed by Wu Tian's powerful force. Insignificant skill. Wu Tian waved his hand, and a terrifying force immediately slammed towards Li Zongjio. The force condensed like an extremely strong storm, and under the storm, the terrifying power of the magma was hidden. Hidden dragon art. Li Zongjio moved and instantly landed in front of the Fire Wraith King. Then he picked up the Fire Wraith King. Mountain flipping golden seal. Li Zongjio placed the King of Fire on his back. The King of Fire also grabbed Li Zongjio's shoulder. When Li Zongjio's mountain flipping golden seal fell, it immediately smashed onto Wu Tian's body. Boom! Wu Tian circulated his power and blocked the mountain flipping golden seal, but his body was directly smashed into the ground, and the surrounding soil was directly smashed into this state. Ghost Flame Bind. The King of Fire also freed his hand, and a red flame rope wrapped around Wu Tian, directly binding him, and threw him into the magma. You can't escape! Wu Tian roared. The combination of the two surprised Wu Tian, and he couldn't even block Li Zongjio's attack. Then, Li Zongjio directly took the King of Fire's figure and disappeared from the Ghost King's secret realm. Chapter 863. Li Zongjio and the King of Fire only took 10 breaths of time to leave the Ghost King mystic realm. Their figures suddenly burst out of the pool. When Li Zongjio rushed out of the pool with the King of Fire, immediately, 5 figures pounced towards Li Zongjio and the others. These people were the ones who were ambushing them. Get lost! Li Zongjio summoned the desolate heaven essence and threw it at these people. Boom! The domineering power instantly sent 3 of them flying, but the other 2 dodged Li Zongjio's attack and leaped in front of Li Zongjio. A palm strike landed on Li Zongjio's chest. Fuck! Li Zongjio had to protect the King of Fire behind him. Although his body wasn't seriously injured, the desolate heaven essence in his hand was snatched away by the other party. These 5 people were all in the Origin Emperor realm. It was already very good that Li Zongjio could defeat the 3 of them under such circumstances. Li Zongjio brought the King of Fire into the distance. There's no need to chase. Although 3 of the 5 people were injured, the other 2 were clearly hiding from the pursuit. This meant that there were still experts behind them. Wu Yu immediately waved his hand and dismissed the pursuit. He would hide for the time being. Although Li Zongjio had escaped, the desolate heaven essence in his hand had been snatched away. In that person's eyes, the power of the desolate heaven essence in his hand was quite good. It was a good harvest. Li Zongjio brought the severely injured and unconscious King of Fire into the Mystic Ghost Mountain. With the huge Mystic Ghost Mountain and the Ghost Ink Stone Mine as a cover, Hiding here was at least temporarily safe. Wu Tian didn't chase after them, but continued to stay in the Ghost King mystic realm. The sky outside was still dark, which meant that a day had passed. Therefore, this was the second night. Li Zongjio brought the King of Fire into a hidden cave. At the same time, he set up some concealment arrays. Even the King of Fire was severely injured by Wu Tian. If Li Zongjio was here, he probably wouldn't be Wu Tian's match. It would be very difficult to defeat him. Furthermore, Li Zongjio wanted to rescue the King of Fire. Although he rescued the King of Fire, Wu Tian probably had some special methods. In short, the grudge between Li Zongjio and Wu Tian had been formed. It seems like I have to find a chance to kill him. Li Zongjio thought to himself. After all, Wu Tian would grow into a person as difficult to deal with as Li Zongjio. When that time came, it would be very dangerous for Li Zongjio to fight Wu Tian. If he wanted to resolve this matter, he had to do it as soon as possible. This girl's body is burning up. Li Zongjio could feel that the King of Fire's body was burning up, and it was extremely hot. Immediately, Li Zongjio tried to transfer the heat from the King of Fire's body to his own. If the Fire Wraith King's body continued to heat up, then sooner or later, it would explode on the spot like a source stone. The Fire Wraith King's body was like an energy body, but now, this energy body was out of balance. If the King of Fire's body exploded, it would be a great threat to Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio, who was so close, would most likely be seriously injured by the explosion. You better not explode. Li Zongjio thought to himself. Then he placed both his palms on the King of Fire's burning back. As he circulated his own energy, the energy in the King of Fire's body quickly flowed into Li Zongjio's body. Boom! At this moment, Li Zongjio felt as if tens of thousands of tons of magma were pouring into his body. Even though Li Zongjio's body had been tempered, it was still very difficult for him. Even Li Zongjio had to take the initiative to activate the ancient Golden Tyrant body technique in order to absorb the energy produced in the King of Fire's body. How could such a small body contain such a huge amount of energy? Li Zongjio did not understand, but this process was also very painful for Li Zongjio. Fortunately, after persisting for 6 hours, the King of Fire's body temperature did not continue to rise. During the process, Li Zongjio discovered that these elixirs had no effect on the King of Fire. There was no effect on the King of Fire's body at all. Only primordial stones could help the King of Fire recover a little. Therefore, Li Zongjio piled up all the primordial stones he had obtained previously beside the King of Fire, allowing the King of Fire to absorb them and recover the energy he had consumed previously. Of course, Li Zongjio also recorded the primordial stones that were consumed one by one. Well, how much energy has this guy accumulated in his body? Li Zongjio's body had directly broken through to the primitive emperor realm because of the energy released from the King of Fire's body. The body of an primitive emperor. Even in his previous life, this was at most the state. Although there would be some changes if he strengthened in other aspects, the difference should not be so big. This unexpected gain was something that Li Zongjio had not expected. However, it could also be seen that the King of Fire was in a very dangerous situation just now. If Li Zongjio had not guided this energy out in time, the King of Fire's body would have exploded. The entire mysterious ghost mountain would have been blown down by an inch. After placing the King of Fire in the pile of primordial stones for nearly 3 days, the King of Fire gradually recovered. Li Zongjio had also stabilized his condition during these 3 days. The body of an primitive emperor gave Li Zongjio a lot of protection. Although he had to thank the King of Fire, it was also important to know that Li Zongjio's actions had directly saved the King of Fire's life. Therefore, Li Zongjio would not take the initiative to thank the King of Fire. Instead, he recorded all the primordial stones that the King of Fire had consumed over the past few days. 1,456 high-grade primordial stones. Now you owe me. Li Zongjio found a book in the person's storage ring. He recorded all the high-grade primordial stones that the King of Fire had consumed over the past few days in this small book. He also kept all the empty shells to prevent the King of Fire from reneging when the time came. 3 days later, the King of Fire gradually opened his eyes. His body's condition had reached a stable level. At least, the previous situation would not happen again. His injuries had also improved. Li Zongjio stood aside and looked at the King of Fire in front of him. He said lightly, "Don't play dead. 1,600 high-grade primordial stones, not one less. You have to return them all to me." Li Zongjio said lightly. More than 1,000 high-grade primordial stones was not a small amount. Just the Qilin warships alone was enough to buy more than 100 of them. Imagine the situation when more than 100 Qilin warships were placed in front of you. Then you would know how valuable these things were. Cough cough. I just woke up. The King of Fire opened his eyes and walked down from the bed made of primordial stones. "Thank you for saving me." The King of Fire casually picked up a primordial stone and looked at Li Zongjio in front of him. "Hey, this stone is good. Where did you get it?" "Don't play dumb here. I have memorized all of it. If you don't return it, I will go to your underground black market and rob it." Li Zongjio said lightly. The King of Fire now was definitely not the King of Fire in the Ghost King's secret realm. Therefore, Li Zongjio also needed to know what this guy was up to. "Don't be so calculative. By the way, have you seen my sister?" The King of Fire suddenly stared at Li Zongjio. When Li Zongjio saw the look in the Fire Wraith King's eyes, he immediately understood. Since the Fire Wraith King said so, there must be a problem. Sure enough, the King of Fire in front of him really had dual personality. Chapter 864. Dual personality disorder wasn't exactly a cliché. It was just that the probability was very small. But looking at the King of Fire's situation, it didn't seem to be as simple as dual personality disorder. If I'm not wrong, you, your sister, and that Wu Tian should be born from the same source. Li Zongjio said slowly. You know quite a lot. The King of Fire's eyes suddenly turned cold. Li Zongjio knew that this should be the appearance of that sister of his. If a young lady like you were to play around all day, wouldn't you scare people to death? Fortunately, Li Zongjio had seen the world and could at least accept such a situation. It's useless even if you try to change your mind. This debt is on your head. I don't care what relationship you have with Wu Tian. Now that our agreement is over, I have to go do my own thing. Li Zongjio stood up and stretched his body. What are you going to do? The King of Fire's sister asked. When I came out, a few people snatched my things. Li Zongjio's eyes turned extremely dangerous at this moment. The corners of his mouth twitched, which was a very dangerous signal. The King of Fire's sister pondered for a moment. It's my fault that you lost that weapon. I'll go with you. Although the King of Fire had been in a coma for the past few days, he could still sense the situation around him and roughly knew what was going on. Naturally, he also knew that Li Zongjio had been guarding him by his side for 3 whole days. So the King of Fire said, "Up to you." Immediately, Li Zongjio triggered the connection between him and the Desolate Heaven Essence. These people had taken Li Zongjio's Desolate Heaven Essence and had flaunted it countless times. Just the actions in their hands gave people a strong sense of confidence. Yong Prefecture. Outside Cold Winter City, in the East Shade Sect. The 4 elders of the East Shade Sect, including the sect master, had obtained a lot of treasures after hunting in the Ghost Monarch Mystic Realm. Just these gains alone were enough to increase the foundation of the East Shade Sect by a lot. Sects like the Dongyin sect. They did not have an advantage in terms of numbers to begin with. Their goal was not to continue their ancestral line or pass down their incense. They only wanted to make it easier for themselves to cultivate. That was why they opened a sect. Even if they had a few disciples, they were forcefully captured. There were so many sects on the continent. Joining any sect would increase one's strength for revenge. There was no need to join some evil sections. Therefore, the disciples of sects like the Eastern Yin sect were usually forced to join. Passively. Slowly he got used to it. On this day, all the cultivators of the Dongyin sect gathered together. There were a total of 7 people. One of them was the sect master, while the rest were all elders. The sect master is still the best. That day, he attacked so quickly. We didn't even see it clearly. We only saw the sect master directly hit that kid with his palm and snatch the magic weapon. They gathered together, drinking and chatting merrily. At the same time, they were flattering each other. The sect master of the East Shade sect was still laughing. That kid took a palm strike from me, so he's definitely dead. After that, the 5 of us searched the vicinity for an entire day, but we didn't see any signs of that kid surviving. He's probably already in the stomach of some meta beast. The sect master of the East Shade sect said. Big brother is still the best. No, sect master is the best. They were drinking and chatting here. They were talking about interesting things around them. Compared with some orthodox sects, these evil sects had fewer rules and were more free and unrestrained. Even if they had something to eat today and nothing to eat tomorrow, they would still be happy and do whatever they wanted. This was the ideal situation in the hearts of many people, but some of their behaviors and styles were unacceptable to the world. Sect master, when are we going to capture the wife of the city lord of Winter City and bring her to our East Shade sect for a visit? Hee, I've heard that the wife of the castellan of Winter City was a top beauty in Winter City when she was young. If there's a chance, there's a chance. We can't let that old man get away with it. They spoke without restraint. After all, this place was their territory. They could say and do whatever they wanted. If life was always so free, it would naturally be a good thing. But unfortunately, it was a pity. Unfortunately, they should not have offended Li Zongjio and even snatched Li Zongjio's weapon. The few of them were surrounding the sect master's new weapon, the desolate heaven essence. At this moment, their sharp senses could sense a cold breeze blowing around them. Even if the surroundings were to tremble slightly, they could tell that someone was approaching. Who's there? One of them picked up a torch in front of him and threw it forward, immediately illuminating the figure in the darkness. A man and a woman appeared like ghosts. If it were an ordinary person, they would have wet their pants in fear. However, these 7 people were all primitive emperor experts. Sorry to disturb your mood, but I'm here to take back my things. Li Zongjio and King of Fire walked out of the darkness. As though they were old friends, he walked in front of them and pointed at the desolate heaven essence in the 3rd elder's hand, where he was studying it. The scene fell into a period of silence. Then, the East Shade sect master stared at Li Zongjio and smiled faintly. So it's you. Since you've survived, you shouldn't have come here. If I don't kill you, I won't be able to explain myself, said the East Shade sect master. The few of them also looked at Li Zongjio with vigilance. They actually waited until Li Zongjio came so close to them before noticing them. There must be something wrong with this person. All right, there's no need to be so pretentious. Return the desolate heaven essence to me, and the 5 of you will kill yourselves on the spot. I won't pursue the rest. Li Zongjio crossed his arms and looked at the people in front of him condescendingly. There were a total of 7 people. At that time, only 5 of them made a move. The other 2 were either on the lookout or prepared to deal the final blow. If these people were sensible, they would end their own lives. But if they were unwilling, they couldn't blame Li Zongjio for what he would do. What a temper! Today, my East Shade sect's Yin Laochi wants to see how capable you are. Immediately, Yin Laochi, who was sitting closest to Li Zongjio, stood up. A mere Li Zongjio dared to be so arrogant in their territory. He even dared to threaten them so blatantly and ask them to kill themselves. It was really laughable. Yin Laochi's strength as a first-grade primitive emperor instantly erupted, like a gust of cold wind descending from the sky. Li Zongjio directly punched Yin Laochi's head. Pang! A fresh head rolled to the ground and flew a distance of 40 to 50 meters. Li Zongjio retracted his fist. And primitive emperor's body was that domineering. As Yin Laochi's head was blown away, the rest of the people also took action. Kill him. The remaining 6 people moved together. However, the aura of these 6 people combined was not as strong as the aura of the King of Fire alone. King of Fire's powerful aura erupted, easily suppressing the people in front of him. Damn it! The East Shade sect master felt the strength of the newcomer and immediately slashed the desolate heaven essence in his hand forward. Immediately, a terrifying power began to spread out. However, Li Zongjiu only stretched out his hand and easily caught the desolate heaven essence in his hand. How is this possible? The East Shade Sect master knew the power of the desolate heaven essence in his hand. 2 days ago, he had used the desolate heaven essence to fight with the rank 6 origin beast. In the end, the desolate heaven essence made the East Shade Sect master feel extremely reassured. However, Li Zongjiu had used his own hand to catch the desolate heaven essence. Such a good thing was used as a club by you. Aren't you embarrassed? Li Zongjiu snatched the desolate heaven essence from the East Shade Sect master's hand in the next second. Soul Seeker Domain. When the East Shade Sect master saw this, he knew that he couldn't delay any longer. Otherwise, the situation would become serious. The power of the domain instantly dragged Li Zongjiu into it. Chapter 865. Li Zongjiu was dragged into the soul-seeking domain by the sect master of the East Shade Sect. The energy all around was vengeful. Almost all of them were vengeful souls that had come to claim Li Zongjiu's life. Countless negative energies surged towards Li Zongjiu. However, the power of these vengeful souls was easily crushed by Li Zongjiu's aura as soon as it approached him. The Blood Dragon soul slowly appeared. In such a place, the Blood Dragon soul devoured all the surrounding energy like a tiger in a flock of sheep. Roar! The Blood Dragon soul kept devouring in the domain. The energy that the sect master of the East Shade Sect had accumulated with great difficulty was not enough for the Blood Dragon soul to devour for a few minutes. Enough! Shut up! The sect master of the East Shade Sect roared angrily. The Blood Dragon soul casually swung its tail and whipped the sect master of the East Shade Sect. The sect master spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground with a bang. The sect master of the East Shade Sect landed on the ground. The power of the domain around him was also devoured at this moment. It no longer had any effect. Come and have a taste of my domain too. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. Then he grabbed the sect master of the East Shade Sect's head. At this moment, the sect master of the East Shade Sect's eyes were filled with horror. Who on earth had he offended? How could he end up in such a miserable state? In the next moment, Li Zongjiu brought the sect master of the East Shade Sect into his blood soul hell. What existed in the domain of the East Shade Sect just now were some ordinary vengeful souls. The power generated in Li Zongjiu's blood soul hell was like a peerless evil soul that had cultivated for 10,000 years. It would be extremely excited at the sight of blood. No, let me out! Let me out! The blood directly drowned the sect master of the East Shade Sect. After that, there was no response to the Eastern Shade Sect master's shouts. In fact, as soon as he opened his mouth, a terrifying amount of blood gushed into his body, immediately pouring into his body. Boom! In the end, the body of the sect master of the Eastern Een sect was easily melted by the endless blood. He returned to the Eastern Een sect. The dignified East Shade sect had been so easily annihilated by the two of them. This was quite surprising. However, with the Fire Wraith King's strength, it would be difficult for him to deal with Wu Tian. However, if he were to deal with the people in front of him, this threat was nothing. After that, Li Zongjiu also set fire to the Dongyin sect, and their storage rings fell into Li Zongjiu's hands. The entire East Moon sect was burning with raging flames, but no patriarch-level experts appeared. The remaining Yuan monarchs were shocked to discover that they had no way of extinguishing the flames. Li Zongjiu's things were not so easy to snatch. In order to make it easier to return to Sacred Flame Royal City, Li Zongjiu and King of Fire also came to the nearby Winter City. In the past, Winter City was the boundless northern glacier. In this glacial land, life could be said to be barren. Yet, Winter City had built an extremely powerful defensive structure here. Li Zongjiu knew that there were still some ancient tribes living in the glacier land. Therefore, the Saint Flame Empire built the Winter City here. They wanted to use the majesty of the Winter City to resist those terrifying existences. A war between those races would not break out so quickly. Therefore, there was still some time to prepare for it. However, the defensive strength of Winter City was also very strong. Otherwise, it would not be unreasonable for the people of the East Shade sect to not dare to make a move on the wife of the city lord for so long. Given the strength of Winter City, it would not be difficult to wipe out the East Shade sect. After all, Winter City was different from other cities. The movements within 100 miles were all under the control of Winter City. At this moment, the city lord's mansion of Winter City also received the information from below. In the direction of the East Shade sect, there was a sudden burst of fire. It was estimated that the East Shade sect had been burned into a pile of ruins. After receiving the news from the city lord of Winter City, a light flashed in his eyes. They must have been exterminated by someone. These flames were only released after they killed everyone. They were venting their anger. The city lord of Winter City said in a deep voice. The people below felt extremely incredulous. This was the East Shade sect. City lord, there are 7 primitive emperor experts in the East Shade sect. How is it possible? The subordinates could not believe it. Those were primitive emperor experts, almost invincible existences. Even primitive emperors have differences in strength. They will all die. Such a matter has already exceeded our level. A white-robed old man beside the city lord of Winter City said. The white-robed old man was a super expert in Winter City. He never paid attention to ordinary matters. He only took action when there were some difficult problems. Last time, there were 3 5th-level meta-beasts that wanted to attack Winter City. In the end, the white-robed old man also took action. He easily defeated the meta-beasts in front of him with 3 palms. Then, the 3 meta-beasts turned around and fled. It was an eye-opener. At that time, the people of Winter City knew that there was such an expert in the city lord's mansion of Winter City. Then, the forces below dared not be too arrogant. Everyone followed the rules. At this time, the management of the imperial court was extremely strong. In actual fact, some of the important cities were tightly controlled by the Saint Flame Empire. Under their iron fist rule, anyone could only behave themselves. If they disobeyed any of the rules, they would be directly crippled. As for the rest of the cities, they only sent some people symbolically to fish for profit and build up their prestige. That was the most important thing. As soon as the white-robed old man finished speaking, the expression in his eyes suddenly changed. He seemed to have sensed a terrifying pressure coming at him. What's wrong, Elder Snow? The city lord of Winter City said. An expert has entered the city. The white-robed old man said in a deep voice. The person who could be called an expert by Elder Snow must not be simple. Looking at Elder Snow's solemn expression, he knew that the person who came must be very strong. The city lord of Winter City's face also became extremely solemn. The unknown expert entered the city and the fire at the East Shade sect. These things all happened too coincidentally. It was not difficult to guess that there must be some connection between them. In that case, what was the purpose of these 5 experts coming to the city? Let's go and meet these people. In the end, the city lord of Winter City made the decision. This was not a place for sightseeing. There must be a purpose for coming here. Therefore, in order to ensure the safety of Winter City, it was necessary to find out the origin of these people. After Li Zhongjio and the King of Fire entered the city. At the same time, they discovered that there was an expert in the direction of the city lord's mansion. This expert did not keep a low profile. Instead, he was constantly monitoring the situation in the city. Therefore, Li Zhongjio and Elder Snow knew that the other party had already known of their arrival. Immediately, the two found a small noodle stall and sat down. Boss, 2 bowls of noodles. One of them, add more meat. The King of Fire raised his hand and said. Obviously, this was his sister. Li Zhongjio did not bother to distinguish whether this was the King of Fire's sister or the King of Fire's sister. Anyway, the two looked exactly the same. 2 bowls of steaming hot noodles were placed in front of the two. It smells so good. Immediately, the King of Fire happily held the noodles in his hand and ate. In any case, the change in personality of the King of Fire was indeed a little strange. It seemed that the elder sister was becoming colder and colder, while the younger sister was becoming more and more innocent. Li Zongjio also picked at the noodles in his hand. Boss, 2 bowls of noodles. Does this little brother mind sharing a table? Chapter 866. Li Zongjio did not even look at the stall owner. He just knocked on the table, indicating that the stall owner could sit down. However, the stall owner was a little confused. Because of the 2 people who sat down, one of them was the city lord of Winter City, and the other was the guardian of Winter City. He never thought that these 2 big shots would come to his noodle stall to eat noodles. He was so scared that he almost knelt down to salute them. However, a fat man in casual clothes supported the stall owner and took him to the side. He put on an apron and skillfully used some of the things on the stall to quickly make 2 bowls of beef noodles with chopped green onion. I'm the city lord of Winter City, Tang Xinghai. May I ask why you 2 are here in Winter City? Tang Xinghai said to the 2. Li Zongjio naturally knew the purpose of these 2 people's visit. He must be very worried that they were here to cause trouble. After all, no one would come to a place like this if they had nothing to do. Moreover, Li Zongjio and Elder Snow were not from Winter City. No matter what the situation was, they had to investigate. We're just passing by. Li Zongjio said. You don't have to worry. The 2 of us are just here to take a ride on the airship. Tang Xinghai and Elder Snow heard this and were the first to breathe a sigh of relief. At least from Li Zongjio's tone, there was still room for discussion. At least there was room for discussion. Okay, you 2 can take my warrant and arrange the airship for you in advance. All the expenses will be on the city lord's mansion. Tang Xinghai gave Li Zongjio a travel booklet. This booklet was the official notice of the city lord's mansion. Receiving this booklet was equivalent to receiving an urgent report. No civil organization would dare to delay it. Well said. Li Zongjio was not here to cause trouble, and Li Zongjio also knew the importance of Winter City. He could not be careless. Even some people from the Dongyin sect did not dare to cause trouble here. This showed the importance of Winter City. I think your noodles are pretty good too. Fatty, give me a bowl too. Me too. The Fire Wraith King quickly added. 2 bowls. Li Zongjio raised 2 fingers and said. The fat man was the special chef of the city lord mansion. Although his cooking skills looked very ordinary, it had to be known that his cooking skills had been accumulated for decades. Therefore, the skills in his hands were not just for show. Soon Li Zongjio and Elder Snow each had a bowl of noodles. Since you're here, let's eat the noodles. The 4 of them ate the noodles of ordinary people in the small noodle stall. There weren't many onlookers in the surroundings, but there were many people in disguise nearby. They had already pushed the ordinary citizens back and carried out a certain degree of evacuation. However, the situation on the entire street seemed to be normal. After eating the noodles, Li Zongjio relied on the booklet in his hand and Elder Snow to personally lead the way. It was already good enough that City Lord Tang Xinghai could sit down and eat a bowl of noodles. Now that the noodles were finished, it was naturally time to continue working. It didn't seem to be very busy, but recently, there had been some big movements in the glacier. The city is not peaceful these days. If there is a chance in the future, the 2 of you are very welcome to visit our Winter City. Elder Snow said to the 2 of them. We will. Li Zongjio said. This Elder Snow in front of him should be from the Imperial Guardian sect, which was why he was arranged to be stationed here. Therefore, Li Zongjio chose to be friendly with these people. Otherwise, if he offended these people, he would not have a good ending. Once he was targeted by these people, he would really have to leave the Xingyan dynasty. Elder Snow arranged a flying boat for Li Zongjio and Elder Snow. This flying boat was considered to be of a higher grade. Watching the airship slowly take off, Elder Snow finally let out a sigh of relief. If the 2 of them stayed here, he would feel uneasy. They were like 2 giant bombs that could explode at any time. Once they were activated, the entire Winter City would collapse. Buzz! All of a sudden, the loud sound of a bugle horn came from above Winter City. Not good. Elder Snow, who was still in the middle of the flying boat, immediately froze when he heard this sound. Then, his whole body soared into the sky and rushed to the northern city wall. Boom! Tang Xinghai also came to the city wall under the protection of the guards. In front of the city wall, there seemed to be an extremely terrifying storm. A cloud of white fog, extremely cold aura, suddenly swept in the direction of Winter City. It caused a layer of frost to quickly condense on the city wall. When the frost appeared, Tang Xinghai also very clearly felt the cold aura. It's the freeze birds. Elder Snow's figure landed on the city wall. He came to Tang Xinghai's side and looked at the terrifying aura in front of him. His eyes were filled with shock. This vast expanse of white was not like the Olympics. It was a type of freeze bird that could bring low temperatures. These freeze birds could be said to be quite ruthless. No matter where they flew, they could bring a terrifying cold. The extremely low temperature was equivalent to bringing about a great disaster. Many creatures in the mountains were frozen by these freeze birds. Every time these freeze birds appeared, it was a disaster for Winter City. Prepare to fire the incendiary bombs, Tang Xinghai said in a deep voice. If this army of frozen birds were to charge into the city, it would only take a few minutes for them to freeze the entire city into piles of ice sculptures. The entire Winter City would become an ice sculpture city. In that case, everyone in the city would die. What's that? In front of the mighty army of freeze birds, an extremely small flying boat suddenly appeared. In their eyes, it was like a leaf rushing into the army of freeze birds. When they saw the flying boat slowly approaching, everyone was stunned. Could it be that they were going to commit suicide? Elder Snow clearly remembered the appearance of the flying boat when he sent Li Zongjio and Li Zongjio to it. Wasn't it the same flying boat that flew up? Wasn't it the same flying boat that Li Zongjio and Li Zongjio were on? What are they doing? In the next moment, an extremely terrifying flame appeared on the airship. The flames spread out in all directions, as if it was a path paved with flames. All the freeze birds were covered by this flame. These terrifying freeze birds were like the Grim Reaper in this world of ice and snow. At this moment, they were easily burned by this ball of flame. Rumble! The flying boat directly rolled over the corpses of the frozen birds. After the bodies of the freeze birds came into contact with these flames, they were like burned matchsticks, and their corpses fell from the sky. Piles of ashes appeared. This flying boat seemed weak, but it directly blocked a disaster for Winter City. Because of the distance between them, the scene in front of them was like a silent picture. At the intersection of red and white, a flying boat was slowly breaking through the enemy's formation. Just like that, the vast army of freezing birds was completely burned down. Then the flying boat went further and further away, finally disappearing into the sky. When the people above Winter City saw this scene, they didn't know how to describe their feelings. They thought that there would be a bloody battle today. This was because the flock of freeze birds didn't have a fixed place to live. Moreover, it was a special disaster at the glacial border. No one could predict that these things would suddenly fly over, and it was difficult to resist. It's all thanks to those two people. Even Elder Snow himself felt very lucky. Tang Xinghai also breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 867. Sacred Flame Royal City. At this moment, it was the warm spring and blooming flowers. Everything was coming back to life. The Heavenly Pill Pavilion was also preparing for this extremely grand competition. This was an exchange competition between the three great dynasties. The three great empires were having such a grand exchange in alchemy. The Xingyan dynasty's Heavenly Pill Pavilion naturally had to prepare well. This was also a way to show the Xingyan dynasty's strength to the other two dynasties. Otherwise, no one would think that the Xingyan dynasty was strong. Since the Xingyan dynasty wanted to become stronger, it had to become stronger in all aspects. For this exchange competition between the dynasties, the Heavenly Pill Pavilion was fully prepared. The Heavenly Pill Pavilion had also made sufficient preparations. First, there would be an audition to select the most powerful alchemist from the entire country. Then, they would represent the Saint Flame Empire in the competition and defeat their opponents. It was precisely because of this early publicity that the emotions of these young alchemists were directly stirred up. They also felt great encouragement from this aspect. At this moment, in Sacred Flame Royal City, the audition for alchemists was also in full swing. However, only 8 of the 10 spots had been taken out for everyone to compete for. Even if one was from Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, one still had to come and compete for it. Once one was selected, one would receive a very generous reward in addition to the supreme glory one would receive. For a time, the popularity of the Xingyan dynasty did not decrease. However, there were 2 spots that were already taken. Most people did not have any objections to one of them because one of them was the imperial family's #1 alchemist's disciple. It was said that this person's talent was extremely monstrous. He had once refined a 6th-grade elixir, but his current realm was unknown. Even the Emperor Xingyan wanted to betroth the princess to this person. He had once studied in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor for a period of time, but he was invincible in the world. None of the instructors were his opponent. Before he left, he directly said that a place like the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was only suitable for some basic alchemists to train. If someone were to hear this, wouldn't they be angered to death? He wanted nothing more than to rush forward and knock this guy to the ground with a single punch. However, there was nothing they could do about it. His talent was right there. If someone was not convinced, he would easily become a 5th-grade alchemist in the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. After that, no one had any complaints about this person. Subsequently, this person acted arrogantly in the Sacred Flame Royal City for a period of time before he chose to disappear. This was because the surrounding matters posed no challenge to him. When he was in seclusion, Li Zongjio was stirring up a storm in the city. The Ancient One. That was his name. It was said that this person also came from a very powerful family. This family was powerful because no one knew what kind of family they were. They were incomparably mysterious. When the Ancient One heard that an extremely powerful alchemist had arrived in the city, he had displayed his extraordinary talents in the Celestial Day Medicine Manor. No one had dared to stop him. However, the Ancient One had only smiled disdainfully at the appearance of such a person. A clown like him won't be able to last long. Many people compared Li Zongjio to the Ancient One. They realized that these 2 madmen were each more arrogant than the other. However, many people were more optimistic about the Ancient One. This was because the Ancient One had chosen to settle down after his arrogance. To be able to settle down in such a state of arrogance, one's achievements would be even greater and even more terrifying. Therefore, these people admired the Ancient One even more. On the other hand, Li Zongjio proved that an arrogant army was bound to be defeated. If he faced any problems in the future, he would quickly crumble and become a passerby. It was only a matter of time. Nothing was impossible. For these 2 people who occupied these 2 precious spots, it was a pity. Naturally, it was to let these people clearly see that these 2 people would be the targets of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. Not to mention their meteoric rise in the future, these 2 people would be able to obtain extremely high achievements on their own. There was no need to even think about it. The Sacred Flame Imperial City had been holding this alchemy competition for the past few days. This was because the rewards were very generous. In addition, this was a very good opportunity to interact with experts from other dynasties. It was also a good opportunity to compete with experts from their own dynasties. This was a rare opportunity. As a result, it attracted many hidden experts to appear one after another and compete on the platform. This competition also forced the Heavenly Pill Pavilion to release a ranking list of the younger alchemists. It was called the Outstanding Elixir Ranking. Li Zongjio and the Ancient One's names were both on the ranking list. However, there was no clear winner. This was also a gimmick created by the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. The purpose was to draw more attention to this matter. If everyone was paying attention to this matter, then it would be a big step in the success of the first step. This time, only the top 8 would be selected for this competition. These 8 people had to be confirmed by the officials to be under the age of 25. They were the best alchemists in the Xingyan dynasty. As long as they were under the age of 25, anyone could participate in this competition. Kuan Arashir was also representing the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. After the training at the Dark Horse Elixir Gathering, Kuan Arashir had at least succeeded. He had broken free from the peaceful environment and entered an environment full of hardships. After 3 days of hard work, he had successfully entered the top 16. These 16 people would have a fierce competition with each other. In the end, 8 people would be selected. It was said that one of the seeded contestants, the Ancient One, would personally appear in the finals. He would even accept challenges from all the alchemists present. If one had the confidence to defeat the Ancient One's spot would be given to him. This was such an arrogant statement. Of course, when such people heard it, they would at most imagine it. If they really rushed in and fought with him, they would only end up being ruthlessly humiliated. Su Sha was in the Heavenly Pill Pavilion's office, looking at the name list in her hand. They were about to enter the finals. She had sent several invitations to the White Deer Manor to invite Li Zongjio to participate in the competition. At the same time, she wanted to let Li Zongjio get to know the future team members in advance. However, she had not received a reply from the White Deer Manor until now. Therefore, this made Su Sha more anxious. Su Sha's understanding of Li Zongjio and the others was incomparably admirable. She had witnessed the strength of these people with her own eyes. They had directly killed the Imperial Guard commander's son. Not only that, but the commander of the Imperial Guards was also executed that night for some unknown reason because of the matter with the demons. Faced with such a situation, Su Sha clearly understood the strength of Li Zongjio and the others. This kind of ability was truly terrifying. After that, Su Sha did not have much interaction with these people. However, Su Sha more or less believed that if she were to speak up, Li Zongjio would at least give her some face. No, I have to go personally. Tomorrow was the day of the finals. In any case, she had to see Li Zongjio. Otherwise, after the appearance of the Ancient One, Li Zongjio did not appear. Immediately, another hot topic would appear. Outside the city, the airship landed. Li Zongjio and the King of Fire appeared. After entering the city, this trip was considered to be over. You owe me primeval stones. I will send the bill to you. When you are ready, just send it to my residence. Li Zongjio said, then walked ahead. Hey, Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio stopped in his tracks. When he turned around, he realized that the King of Fire had disappeared without a trace. Li Zongjio did not understand what this girl was up to. He did not waste any more time and walked towards the White Deer Manor. Chapter 868. When Su Sha arrived at the White Deer Manor, she saw that the door of the manor was tightly shut. She couldn't help but frown. What's going on? Su Sha knocked on the door, but no one came to open it. What's going on? A voice sounded from behind Su Sha. Su Sha subconsciously replied, I don't know. He's been like this since he arrived. I've never seen him before. After Su Sha finished answering, she turned her head around because she felt that the voice sounded a little familiar. Li Zongjio? When Su Sha saw Li Zongjio, she immediately cried out in surprise. Did you see a ghost? Li Zongjio couldn't help but say. It's not a good habit for a lady like you to call out in broad daylight. You just came back? Su Sha saw Li Zongjio's travel-worn appearance and was a little surprised. No wonder he didn't reply to so many of her messages. Li Zongjio wasn't at home at all. Yeah, what's going on? Li Zongjio blasted the door open with a palm. What did Xiao Zhao do? She actually closed the door so tightly. Could it be that something was stolen? Who's there? Lu Pei and the other guards immediately rushed out when they heard the commotion at the door. When they saw that it was Li Zongjio who walked in, they were stunned for a moment. Young master, you're back? Lu Pei's heart was filled with excitement. Li Zongjio looked at these people who were on tenterhooks and were on high alert. It seemed that something big had happened. Something big has happened. A few days ago, young Master Li Baichao and the others had a conflict with someone in the city and were detained. Miss Xiao Zhao found Tai Feihe, but even Tai Feihe was injured by them and is now lying here. Miss Li Yan asked us to close the door and not go out for the time being and not accept anyone's visit. Lu Pei said. Someone actually dared to come and beat him up. Li Zongjio was thoroughly enraged. With his current reputation and temper, it was fine if he didn't provoke others, But now he actually dared to detain people from his Li Zongjio family. They actually dared to touch my Li family's people. These people don't even need to think about living. After Li Zongjio's rebirth this time, the first and most important thing he understood was to protect his family and clan. This was the true meaning of Li Zongjio's rebirth and continued to cultivate. Now, someone had taken advantage of Li Zongjio's absence to make a move against the Li family. Who are they? Su Sha asked. Logically speaking, such a situation shouldn't have happened. Indeed, Li Zongjio's reputation in his city wasn't simple. Now that such a thing had happened, Su Sha really wanted to know who the other party was. The Ancient One from Lingbo Hall. When she heard this name, Su Sha's entire face almost fell. How could it be the Ancient One? Lingbo Hall was a small alchemy club in the city. It was said that the people in this club were all important figures in the future Sacred Flame Imperial City. It was said that there was even a prince among them. That was why the situation this time around was so serious, and the situation was also extremely unclear. Li Zongjio didn't care who these people were. After all, these people wouldn't live to see the next day. Li Zongjio, who was in a rage, appeared to be exceptionally calm. Nangong Wuji and Hong Shisan were said to be out. Since the other party had come at such a coincidence, it was either a real coincidence or they had come prepared. Li Zongjio first entered to check on Xiao Zhao and Taifai's condition. Their injuries weren't too light, but they weren't too serious either. In comparison, Taifai's condition was more serious. After all, Taifai was stronger and more threatening. In addition, he was also an important figure in the Li family. Most of Li Zongjio's matters were handled by Taifai. Therefore, he naturally had to beat him up more ruthlessly. Li Yun also personally refined a few elixirs. She knew that Li Zongjio and her master, the King of Fire, had gone on a long journey together. Therefore, although Li Yun was extremely anxious, she knew that she had to keep everyone calm. Therefore, when Li Yun returned this time, she directly ordered the manor to be temporarily closed. No one was allowed to go out and make trouble. The enemy was so strong that it was impossible for Li Yun and the others to take action. Everything could only wait for Li Zongjio or Nangong Wuji to come back. You've worked hard. Leave the rest to me. Li Zongjio looked at the tired Li Yun and patted her shoulder. You must bring Bai Chao and the others back. Li Yun held Li Zongjio's hand and said. Li Yun also knew about the power of Lingbo Palace from the information of Thousand Machine Workshop. The people inside were all very important figures. Li Baichao and the others didn't deliberately make enemies with these people. It was even a trap to deal with Li Zongjio. Don't worry. I won't let anyone bully the Li family. Li Zongjio said indifferently. His eyes were also filled with a cold and sinister intent. This matter had already touched Li Zongjio's bottom line. Li Zongjio took action and stabilized the injuries of these two people. Then, he wrote a prescription and asked Liu Pei and a disciple of the Li family to get the medicine together. With this, their injuries could be healed. At the very least, they wouldn't be in as much pain as they were now. They will at least wake up tomorrow. Only after they take the medicine will they be able to recover. Li Zongjio said. Li Zongjio, this is no small matter. Listen to me. Su Sha hurriedly said when she saw Li Zongjio turning around and preparing to go to Lingbo Palace. After all, Li Zongjio was an honorary elder of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. You are an honorary elder of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. Now that your family is in trouble, the Heavenly Pill Pavilion will naturally step in for you. Why are you in such a hurry? We will definitely give you justice. Justice? Li Zongjio glanced at Su Sha. What's the use of justice? Whoever dares to touch my Li family, I will kill them. Whoever stops me, I will kill them as well. Liu Pei, when I return, I will leave White Deer Manor to you. If anyone dares to cause trouble, kill them immediately. Liu Pei immediately roared, Yes, young master. Since Li Zongjio ordered Liu Pei to kill, Liu Pei naturally wouldn't hesitate in the slightest. Now that they were in White Deer Manor, it could be said that they had already obtained a lot of benefits. Their strength could even be said to have soared by leaps and bounds. Anywhere else would be as comfortable and worthwhile as White's Tag Manor. Wait a moment. Su Sha was extremely anxious, but she also heard Li Zongjio's words. Whoever dares to stop him, he will kill them. No matter who came, it would be useless. Therefore, Su Sha didn't dare to stop him now. What's the matter, boss? While Su Sha was anxious, she suddenly saw Kun Erisher, whom she hadn't seen for a long time, walking in with a girl. It was Shueyu. Go kill a few people? Li Zongjio said indifferently. It seems like Kun Erisher didn't know about the situation here. Today, he only wanted to bring Shueyu to Li Zongjio, but when he saw Li Zongjio walking out with a murderous look, he knew that something had happened. I will go with you, Kun Erisher said without hesitation. Then, he said to Shueyu who was beside him, you wait here first, I will come back to pick you up later. No, big brother Li Zongjio saved my mother, his matter is my matter. Shueyu immediately shook her head like a rattledrum. Kun Erisher knew that Shueyu had a stubborn temperament, and he also understood in his heart. Then don't cause trouble. You know who you are dealing with. Su Sha saw that these two people didn't even blink and wanted to go with Li Zongjio to cause trouble. They were really brainless. Miss Su Sha, no matter where we go, even if the boss wants me to break into the Forbidden City, I, Kun Erisher, will definitely not blink an eye. Chapter 869. When Su Sha heard Kun Arashi's words, she was shocked by the determination in Kun Arashi's words. After that, she was almost angered to death by Kun Erisher. What was the meaning of this? It was simply too stupid. How could anyone have such stupid thoughts and ideas? Of course, Su Sha was also worried about this group of madmen, so she immediately followed them. Since she couldn't stop the three of them, she had to at least persuade the Ancient One and the others to put down their arrogant attitude. Everyone had to discuss this matter properly. If they were to clash head-on, the situation would become very bad. As the four of them walked, Li Zongjio had already obtained the map from the Thousand Machine Workshop. Just as he was about to move forward, a woman appeared in front of him. However, he saw a woman in a white mermaid dress standing in the middle of the road. She seemed to be trying to stop Li Zongjio and the others from advancing. It's her. When Kun Erisher saw the person in front of him, Li Zongjio didn't stop walking and naturally walked forward. If the person's purpose was to stop Li Zongjio, Kun Erisher would have to take her down. What are you doing here? When Li Zongjio saw the person in front of him, he asked calmly. No matter who stood in his way today, Li Zongjio would cripple them. Even if the Heavenly King came, he wouldn't give them any face. I know what you're going to do, Qi Yanran said. The person standing in the middle of the road was the genius girl of the Qi family, Qi Yanran. Obviously, Qi Yanran knew a little about this matter. So, Li Zongjio looked at Qi Yanran in front of him. Even Qi Shaohun couldn't stop Li Zongjio, let alone Qi Yanran in front of him. Li Zongjio didn't care about beautiful women. Once they died, they would be a pile of bones. There was nothing beautiful about it. Therefore, even if you were beautiful, you wouldn't be of much use to Li Zongjio. I'll help you, Qi Yanran said. Su Sha looked at Qi Yanran expectantly. These stupid men didn't know anything. How could Qi Yanran, the eldest daughter of the Qi family, not know anything? Not only did she not help to stop Li Zongjio, but now she even wanted to join Li Zongjio's troublemaking. Su Sha couldn't believe it. Knowing that what Li Zongjio did was wrong, she still wanted to continue to do it. This matter had happened rather suddenly. In addition, the Lingbo Palace had dealt with it extremely quickly. Even a place like the Heavenly Pill Pavilion had not received the news. However, Qi Yanran knew about it. This meant that Qi Yanran was also very concerned about the matters of the White Deer Manor. Kun Erisher and Shueyu came. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to know. Especially in this city, Kun Erisher didn't have much power. Li Zongjio was also stunned. Although Li Zongjio didn't know the origin of the Lingbo Palace, Su Sha had said that these people were not to be trifled with. Qi Yanran was obviously more clear about it. What kind of people were in the Lingbo Palace? It was not Qi Yanran's business, but Qi Yanran chose to join. Even if he didn't understand, if Qi Yanran wanted to follow, he would let her follow. The Lingbo Palace. It was located in a garden in the north of the city. This garden was specially designed and built, so the scenery was very magnificent. However, the Lingbo Palace was able to build a manor with a small bridge and flowing water here. This showed the strength of the Lingbo Palace. Otherwise, how could they set up a private club in such a place? The master of the wave overtaking palace was always changing. In Lingbo Hall, only those who had the most potential among the youths in Monarch City were qualified to enter Lingbo Hall. In other words, the Lingbo Palace would take the initiative to recruit you. The Ancient One had been a member of the Lingbo Palace for a long time. There were only a total of 7 people in the Lingbo Palace. These 7 people formed a strong group that could almost represent the highest level in all aspects of the Sacred Flame Royal City. Therefore, it could be said that these people completely disregarded everyone else in Lingbo Palace. They did not place anyone in their eyes. Brother Qin, I don't think that kid with the surname Li is anything special. We have captured all his tribesmen, but he didn't even dare to fart. All he did was allow these riffraff to cause trouble. How can such a person be qualified to participate in the 3 Dynasties pill gathering with you? There were 3 young figures sitting in front of a few expensive tables and chairs. One of them was wearing a long green robe. There seemed to be a flame symbol between his eyebrows. A person with such an appearance would be the center of attention no matter where he went. In addition, there were people who had mentioned this person's identity earlier. It was none other than the famous Ancient One. He was also recognized as the #1 alchemist in the royal city. There was no doubt about the Ancient One's strength. Anyone who was able to sit and chat with the Ancient One must be an incredible figure. One of them was dressed in disguise, but there was a bronze bracelet on his wrist. The bracelet contained an extremely powerful Yuan weapon called the Transformation Armor. With a thought, he could summon the Transformation Armor and attach it to his body. It was equivalent to an extremely strong defensive armor. This person was also extremely famous in the city. His nickname was War God Feng. His real name was Zhang Tianfeng. He could be said to be the chief disciple of the Imperial Martial Pavilion. It was more difficult for ordinary students to come into contact with Zhang Tianfeng than it was for them to meet the head of the Imperial Martial Pavilion. During Zhang Tianfeng's time in the Imperial Martial Pavilion, he had won every battle and had never tasted defeat. His journey was smooth sailing and he had never lost a battle. It was not because Zhang Tianfeng was lucky, but because Zhang Tianfeng's strength was too strong. In addition to his amazing talent, he also had the War God Fist technique of the Zhang family. Therefore, Zhang Tianfeng had not tasted defeat for many years. There was only one draw, and that was when he challenged the Academy Elder. Both parties were exhausted, but Zhang Tianfeng still held back. Therefore, it could be said that Zhang Tianfeng was still in a victorious position in that match. This time, Zhang Tianfeng was the one who stepped in. After all, with him here, it did not matter if anyone else came. He could easily control the entire situation. If it wasn't for Brother Sky Maple dismissing those messy people, then I reckon I would have to be busy for a period of time. The Ancient One said with a smile. In terms of fighting, the Ancient One's fighting skills were only average and not outstanding. However, he had his own means of survival. Moreover, the Ancient One was always protected by the shadow guards of his family. Such an important person was similar to the Ancient One's talent. They were all people who could easily change the fate of a clan. People who possessed such strength naturally needed to be protected. Brother Ancient One's alchemy skills and Brother Tianfeng's fist technique. With the combination of the two of you, no one in Holy Flame Royal City can shake you. The third person said. When the third person spoke, the other 2 people looked serious and did not show the slightest bit of frivolity. We've embarrassed ourselves in front of the third prince. The 2 people cupped their hands and said to the third person, "It's the third prince." After drinking a few cups, a person behind the third prince came forward and whispered a few words in his ear. Immediately, a glint flashed across the third prince's eyes. "I still have some matters to attend to in my residence. I'll take my leave." The third prince stood up and said, "We'll see you out. Please." Zhang Tianfeng and the Ancient One also stood up to see him out. The third prince had casually asked two of the most powerful youths in Royal City to see him out. Naturally, he was very proud. The two of them sent the third prince to the door. The third prince turned around and said to them, "You can stop here. There's no need to see me out anymore." As soon as the third prince finished speaking, he turned around and saw a figure approaching him. This figure came extremely quickly and unexpectedly. Even the guards of the third prince didn't have time to react. The third prince's chest was viciously kicked by someone. His whole body flew from the door to the wall of the inner hall. "I'll see you out. Don't even think about leaving today." Chapter 870. The third prince was sent flying back by the kick. He crashed into the wall and immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. The third prince had never experienced anything like this before. He had been sent flying with a kick in his face. No one had ever experienced something like this before. "Your Highness." When he saw the third prince being sent flying with a kick, Zhang Tianfeng's face turned ugly as if he had eaten shit. He quickly chased after the third prince. Almost everyone rushed to the third prince at the first moment to check if there were any problems with his body. The Ancient One immediately fed the third prince an elixir. He broke the third prince's inner armor with a kick. "He's here to kill." When the Ancient One saw this, he looked out of the door with an extremely cold look in his eyes. Li Zongjio and the rest rushed in. "Tear this place down." Kuan Erasure was naturally more than happy to tear down a house. He swept the Kuan wing spear in his hand across the exquisite decorations, flattening them all. Kuan Erasure did not hesitate to smash some of the items displayed on the display window. Qi Yanran looked at the smashed things around her. Even Qi Yanran was a little surprised because any one of these things was very valuable. Although they were not very useful, they were very valuable. However, Kuan Erasure had destroyed all of them. Kuan Erasure did not seem to realize that he had destroyed millions of purple yuan worth of items in his hands. "You're courting death." Seeing that Lan Kuan was actually unscrupulously cleaning up the miscellaneous items here, he couldn't help but exclaim. How could Zhang Tianfeng, the invincible god of war, tolerate this? Zhang Tianfeng's body flickered as he sent a palm strike towards Li Zongjio. Immediately, an extremely terrifying aura began to gather in the palm. The Zhang clan's god of war fist. Zhang Tianfeng's palm strike changed at will. When the palm strike landed, it carried a terrifying wave of energy. Even Kuan Erasure, Qi Yanran, and the others felt extremely pressured. But Li Zongjio did not dodge or evade. He directly welcomed Zhang Tianfeng's palm with a punch. This was an extremely plain straight punch. However, it was precisely the power of such a fist that exploded in an instant, colliding with his opponent's palm. Zhang Tianfeng had originally wanted to cripple Li Zongjio with a single palm. But when he met Li Zongjio's fist, he was shocked. His expression immediately changed. He wanted to pull his hand back, but it was already impossible for him to do so. Bang! Zhang Tianfeng's entire body was blasted away. When he fell to the ground, his wrist finally couldn't take it anymore. With a loud crack, his wrist was directly fractured by Li Zongjio's attack. He was known as the war god Maple of the Holy Flame Royal City. But now, his hand was broken by Li Zongjio as soon as he met him. Who would dare to believe such a thing? Shadow Guard. The Ancient One hurriedly summoned his Shadow Guard when he saw how ferocious this person was and how he had injured two people without a word. If something were to happen, it would be hard to say what would happen. For safety's sake, the Ancient One hurriedly summoned his Shadow Guard. Even if the Ancient One did not summon him, the Shadow Guard could no longer hide. This person had consecutively defeated two heavyweights. Furthermore, this person had come with such ferocity that the Ancient One had to be next. It was obvious that this person was targeting the Ancient One and the others. Immediately, an illusory figure floated in the air. The space in front of Li Zongjio seemed to undulate. Then, a figure seemed to pass through the space and charged directly at Li Zongjio. The figure that suddenly appeared stabbed at Li Zongjio with his sword. This sudden sneak attack was enough to be considered a top-notch sword move. Be careful. Qi Yanran was the first to react. She was worried that Li Zongjio would be injured and attacked by the other party. She leaped up and stabbed with her sword as well. However, this person's speed was clearly faster than Qi Yanran's. Li Zongjio naturally saw this attack. If it had been an ordinary person, he would have been pierced through by the other party's sword. Faced with the Shadow Guard's sword that had suddenly pierced through space, Li Zongjio merely stretched out his hand and easily used 2 fingers to clamp down on the other party's sword. These 2 fingers easily trapped the sword. The Shadow Guard's figure was still hovering in the air. He wanted to pull his sword out, but he realized that Li Zongjio's fingers were like a pair of iron pliers. They clamped the sword so tightly that it could not move at all. Is that all you've got? Li Zongjio's indifferent gaze made the Shadow Guard feel very uneasy. He had been a Shadow Guard for so many years and had seen many fierce people, as well as many high and mighty people in power. However, this was the first time he saw Li Zongjio's gaze. It was clearly a gaze that could dictate life and death. Under this gaze, there was even an incomparable sense of fear in his heart. Clang. Li Zongjio gently exerted force with 2 fingers and immediately broke the sword in the Shadow Guard's hand. Because of this, the Shadow Guard immediately realized that things were not good. He immediately abandoned the weapon and retreated into the space behind him. Just as the Shadow Guard's figure returned to the space fluctuation, Li Zongjio threw the broken part of the sword in his hand into the space. A muffled sound came from the space. The sword had clearly been shot by Li Zongjio. The Shadow Guard covered his wound and appeared beside the Ancient One. He immediately grabbed the fuming Ancient One. "Let's go," the Shadow Guard said in a low voice. However, the Ancient One was not prepared. Could it be that this person was really so fierce? However, it was too late for the 2 of them to escape. I've said it before. No one can escape today. Li Zongjio said coldly. In the next moment, a blood dragon soul rushed to the top of their heads. The Ancient One growled when he saw this. A lotus flame bloomed from between his eyebrows. Although the Ancient One was not a cultivator who specialized in the cultivation of elemental energy, he still had the ability to protect himself. As the Ancient One raised his hand, a beam of fiery light shot out towards the blood dragon soul. The Ancient One and the others were shocked by the terrifying blood dragon soul that Li Zongjio had released. The flame rushed towards the blood dragon soul. As the blood dragon soul swayed, it easily avoided the flames. Its murderous aura was enough to suppress the flame in front of it. The Ancient One's flame was a joke in front of the blood dragon soul, which had already awakened its powers. The Ancient One's flame was only at the level of a Yuan King. As for War God Feng, he was merely a grade 7 Yuan King. His strength was at most similar to that of Gong Changhe, the young sect master of the Mystic Yuan sect, who had been killed by Li Zongjio. With such strength, how dare he call himself War God Feng? Dog shit Feng was not even worthy. Brat, how dare you offend me, War God Feng? Zhang Tianfeng's arm had been broken by Li Zongjio's punch. Now, he had used his Yuan force to forcibly heal his injury and swallowed an elixir pill. Seeing Li Zongjio's arrogance, Zhang Tianfeng activated his transformation armor and put it on. Zhang Tianfeng's lips curled into a disdainful smile as he stared at Li Zongjio. "I'm going to bury you here today." War God Fist technique. Destroy the heavens and earth. Zhang Tianfeng let out a loud cry. At this moment, the power in his body began to crazily condense. It was as if the surrounding energy was rapidly gathering together with Zhang Tianfeng's call. This punch of Zhang Tianfeng's was also practically his peak state. Li Zongjio's figure flashed. He actually ignored the surrounding pressure and directly rushed in front of Zhang Tianfeng, giving Zhang Tianfeng no time to release the move that he had already prepared. His fist had already landed on Zhang Tianfeng's head. Boom! Zhang Tianfeng's entire person was sent flying. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, his body also smashed down beside the third prince. Half of Zhang Tianfeng's face was swollen. Zhang Tianfeng was unable to withstand the power of this punch. I'm Li Zongjio. Chapter 871. I'm Li Zongjio. As soon as he finished speaking, the blood dragon's soul crushed the Ancient One and the shadow guard under its claws. The Ancient One's body was already covered in wounds. Even in his current state, the Ancient One's eyes widened when he heard Li Zongjio's name. Li Zongjio? This arrogant, murderous man was Li Zongjio. This coward was Li Zongjio from the Li family. He was just as rumored. Unreasonable, unscrupulous, and fearless. He even dared to beat up the third prince. How dare you, Li Zongjio? How dare you offend the third prince? Take him down. The guard beside the third prince also shouted when he saw the situation. However, no one appeared. These people had already been taken down by Li Zongjio and the rest. How dare you touch the Li family? Which one of you is the Ancient One? Li Zongjio roared. At this moment, Lan Kuan had already torn down more than half of the Lingbo Palace. Beside him, Shuiyu also helped to smash a few bottles. Qi Yanran had thought that there would be a fierce battle. She did not expect Li Zongjio to take down all of them single-handedly. These experts from Lingbo Palace, who boasted that they were the best in Monarch City, had all been taken down by Li Zongjio. This was the first time the Ancient One had seen such a ferocious person. No one had dared to disrespect him in the past. Therefore, the Ancient One was very nervous. This was the first time he had been treated so viciously. Moreover, it seemed that no one here could stop Li Zongjio. Normally, everyone would gather together to show off. After all, they did have some strength. However, these people had never been taken advantage of. Since they had never been taken advantage of, they naturally had not encountered such a situation. When they encountered such a situation, they knew fear. Li Zongjio was their nightmare. When they saw Li Zongjio walking towards them, they could clearly feel a strong sense of oppression. The Ancient One didn't even dare to say a word. Shuiyu pointed at him. He is the Ancient One. Shuiyu naturally knew who the Ancient One was. A long time ago, the Emperor Father had the intention of marrying Shuiyu to the Ancient One. However, Shuiyu's mother vehemently objected to it, so the matter was temporarily shelved. However, it was unlikely that it would go anywhere. Fortunately, the young sect master of the Mystic Yuan sect appeared and Li Zongjio brought Lan Kuan to the Mirror Moon Villa. This made the Sacred Flame Emperor realize that his daughter was in high demand, so he wasn't in a hurry. After all, Emperor Xian had never thought of marrying off a princess in exchange for success and peace. However, Shuiyu remembered the Ancient One's face. This guy had always been in and out of the palace. Shuiyu was very unhappy to see him. I am the eldest son of the Gu family. How dare you touch me? When the Ancient One saw Li Zongjio looking at him, he cursed Shuiyu in his heart. What a meddlesome bitch. When Li Zongjio looked at the Ancient One, the smile on his face was extremely bright. The more he saw Li Zongjio smile, the more the Ancient One felt guilty. If you dare touch him, the Gu family will not let you off. The Shadow Guard said in a low voice. The blood dragon soul seemed to be extremely impatient. With a swipe of its claw, it sent the Shadow Guard's head flying. The Shadow Guard was killed just like that. The Ancient One panicked when he saw that his Shadow Guards had been killed. Go and find the members of the Li family. Although Li Zongjio was tormenting the people in front of him, he did not forget the purpose of this trip. Qi Yanran immediately summoned the Longevity Tree original spirit. The Longevity Tree penetrated the ground and searched every corner within 100 meters. There was no other way to search faster than the roots of the Longevity Tree. Soon they found the members of the Li family. They were locked up in the dungeon. Found them. Qi Yanran immediately moved. She would go down to the dungeon and bring them out first. Li Zongjio walked up to the Ancient One. Seeing Li Zongjio so close to him, the Ancient One could not help but feel afraid. At that moment, there was a commotion on the roof of Lingbo Palace. Then, a few figures descended from the sky. A few people had climbed in through the windows. Top secret guards were late to help. A total of 7 figures rushed in. 3 of them surrounded Kuan Erasher and Shuiyu. Of the remaining 4, 2 of them stood in front of the third prince to protect him. One of them stood beside Li Zongjio, while the others stood in front of him. They were able to protect him from the front and back. Clearly, this person was the commander of this operation and the leader of the top secret guards. When the Ancient One saw the arrival of the top secret guards, he was overjoyed. "You guys, take him down. He attacked the third prince and killed my guards. Execute him on the spot." "Screw you." Li Zhongjio aimed a kick at the Ancient One's mouth. The Ancient One flew back 20 to 30 meters, and several of his teeth were knocked out. His mouth was filled with blood, and he looked extremely miserable. This was even more painful than killing the Ancient One with a single blow. This was because Li Zhongjio had thoroughly humiliated him. The top secret guard, who was closest to Li Zhongjio, saw that Li Zhongjio had dared to hit someone in front of him. It was obvious that Li Zhongjio did not respect him at all. Therefore, the top secret guard immediately drew the saber at his waist and swung it at Li Zhongjio's thigh. Li Zhongjio lifted his leg and kicked the top secret guard's saber. These top secret guards were only Yuan kings. Even though the weapons in their hands were extremely powerful, it was almost impossible for them to inflict any damage on Li Zhongjio. The saber in the top secret guard's hand was broken by Li Zhongjio's kick. At the same time, he kicked the top secret guard in the chest and sent him flying. Among these people, there was not a single one who could fight. When they saw that Li Zhongjio had actually dared to attack the top secret guard, the rest of the top secret guards also took action. If a person without any status dared to attack a top secret guard in this manner, it would be tantamount to walking right into a trap and committing suicide. To Li Zhongjio, the top secret guards in front of him were already his enemies since they had already blocked his path. There was no need to be polite at all. The three top secret guards below were also being held back by Kun Erasure. Kun Erasure and Shueyue teamed up and fought 2 against 3. Given Kun Arashi's current skills and his mind power, it was not a problem for him to challenge 3 top secret guards. The 5 of them were fighting in a mess. However, the other 3 top secret guards could be said to be retreating in defeat in front of Li Zhongjio. One punch, one top secret guard. Li Zhongjio sent these top secret guards flying with just a few punches and kicks. However, at least they were still breathing. After all, these top secret guards were doing their job. "Today, I'm only targeting this kid. If you come again, don't even think about leaving." Li Zhongjio severely injured the 4 top secret guards. Then he looked at the Ancient One, who was trying to get up and escape. He kicked a stone stool at the Ancient One's back. Swoosh! The stone block was like a cannonball that shot towards the Ancient One's back in an instant. In an instant, the Ancient One was sent flying and landed in the garden outside. After falling to the ground, he spat out a mouthful of blood. As for the Ancient One's inner armor, it had already been destroyed by Li Zhongjio. If these top secret guards' armor had been able to withstand the Yuan energy of an primitive emperor, it would not have been a problem. However, they had encountered the power of Li Zhongjio's primitive emperor fist. The power of this fist alone was enough to shatter their bones. It was all thanks to the armor that the Ancient One was able to keep his body intact. Don't chase after them. Let them handle this matter themselves. Hurry up and get me out of here. Otherwise, the people from the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion will be here soon. The third prince said hurriedly as he came to his senses. The top secret guards did not understand. Shouldn't they skin the kid alive and pull out his tendons? Why did they want to leave immediately? However, if they were to go against Li Zhongjio, they did not have much of a chance of winning. It would be best if they could escape. Retreat. The leader of the top secret guards gestured. The 3 top secret guards who were fighting with Kun Erasure quickly retreated. To be able to defeat the top secret guards in the Sacred Flame Royal City, this time, Lon Kun would have a great boast to brag about. Chapter 872. Qi Yanran had rescued Li Baichao and the other 2 disciples of the Li family, Li Qin and Li Yu. When the 3 of them saw Qi Yanran, they could not believe their eyes. In the underground structure of the Lingbo Palace, there was a dungeon. Although Li Baichao and the others did not suffer any torture in this dungeon, it was still quite scary to be locked up in such a dark basement for the first time. Therefore, When Qi Yanran rescued the three of them, it was as if they had seen a fairy. "Quick, they have been here for a while," Su Sha said anxiously. When they were still on the way, Su Sha ran to the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion to ask for help. It was useless to just find Su Hong. They had to find the experts in the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion to stop Li Zongjio. Otherwise, with Li Zongjio's bad temper, who knew what he would do and what would happen? Of course, Su Hong also came along. Coincidentally, the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion had also invited a few experts from the royal city to discuss the matters of the journey to the Haiku dynasty. The main venue of the competition had been changed to the territory of the Haiku dynasty. Therefore, they had to prepare enough experts for the journey. If any problems occurred on the journey, the Xingyan dynasty would be the one to lose face. Therefore, they would never let such a thing happen. There was a martial arts hall in the Sacred Flame Royal City. The hall master of the martial arts hall was an primitive emperor expert. He had a clean background and a good relationship with the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion. When the hall master arrived, he could clearly feel that this place was not ordinary. "Hall Master Zhou, quick!" Zhou Zheng's figure flashed and came to the Lingbo Palace. He saw Kun Erisher and Shui Yue, as well as the disciples of the Li family who had just been rescued by Qi Yanran and the surrounding ruins. War God Feng and Zhang Tianfeng of the Sacred Flame Royal City were also unconscious on the ground. Other than them, there was no one else. Zhou Zheng glanced at the wall on his left and saw that there seemed to be a broken hole. He took the lead and rushed out. Su Hong and Su Sha hurriedly walked in. "Oh my God, how did this happen? Let's save them first." When Su Hong saw that the Lingbo Palace had been torn apart, he didn't feel anything. However, when he saw the blood on the ground and Zhang Tianfeng lying on the ground, he suddenly felt his head swelling rapidly. Why did such a thing happen? "Where's Li Zongjio?" Su Hong asked anxiously. On the way here, Su Hong knew why Li Zongjio had come. He also knew that Li Zongjio was looking for the Ancient One. The Ancient One was the treasure of the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion. If he was killed by Li Zongjio, it would be an extremely painful loss. I think he went after him. Kun Erisher was also sitting on the ground to rest. He pointed in the direction of the broken hole. After the previous battle, Kun Erisher could be said to have used up all his energy. Hence, he sat on the ground, paralyzed. Just as he pointed in the direction of the hole, he suddenly heard an extremely painful scream. This was a cry that seemed to have exhausted all the strength in his life. It was full of pain. Even a normal person would feel their scalp go numb when they heard it. "Oh no!" When Su Hong heard this voice, his face turned ashen. Although it was a cry of agony, Su Hong could tell that it was the Ancient One's voice. Clearly, the Ancient One had been crippled. "Stop! Li Zongjio, listen to me. You can't kill him." Zhou Zheng saw that Li Zongjio had already torn off one of the Ancient One's arms. The bloody scene shocked Zhou Zheng greatly. This arm belonged to the alchemy genius of the Holy Flame Royal City, the Ancient One. Zhou Zheng had been in the city for almost 40 years. He had heard everything that had happened in the city and knew everything in detail. The Ancient One was indeed a rare talent. He was an extremely arrogant talent. But now, the Ancient One was like a dying wild dog. His eyes were filled with fear and terror. To be able to force a genius to such a state, this Li Zongjio in front of him was truly ruthless. Zhou Zheng was a person who had experienced many life and death situations. When he was young, he had offended many people. But later on, these enemies were all dealt with by Zhou Zheng. To be able to be chosen by the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, and to be an important person, naturally, would not be simple. "Oh!" Li Zongjio stepped on the Ancient One's face, still holding the arm he had just torn off. "Is there anyone in this world that I, Li Zongjio, can't kill?" Li Zongjio stared at Zhou Zheng. Even Zhou Zheng, who was in the primitive emperor realm, felt a chill in his heart. When it came to killing people, some people were too excited, so they let their emotions affect their decisions, causing things to spiral out of control and fall into a bottomless abyss. That was a sign of losing reason. However, looking at Li Zongjio's eyes, from the look in his eyes, Zhou Zheng could feel extreme confidence. In fact, this confidence had reached the level of a madman. He was fearless. He was truly fearless. It was as if nothing could stop him even if the sky fell down. He had such a terrifying aura. Zhou Jing did not dare to act rashly. If he accidentally trespassed into the other party's territory, he might become a target to be killed. Save me, the Ancient One looked at Zhou Zheng and said in a trembling voice. This was the day that the Ancient One had underestimated the most. His hands were the hands of an alchemist. But Li Zongjio had broken one of his arms. But it was useless now. Before he broke the arm, Li Zongjio had already shattered the Ancient One's energy center with a kick. The Ancient One was still alive and breathing because Li Zongjio did not intend to let him die just like that. He is already crippled. There is no point in killing a cripple. Zhou Zheng glanced at the Ancient One's condition. There was no one else in the entire Sacred Flame Royal City who would dare to do this to the Ancient One. It was shocking. Zhou Zheng was right. The Ancient One was indeed a useless person now. Zhou Zheng could not help but intervene when he saw that Li Zongjio was about to tear off the Ancient One's other arm. Su Hong finally felt it. Stop it, Li Zongjio. You can't do this. You can't do this. Su Hong quickly tried to stop him. Crack. The crisp sound of bones breaking was so pleasant to the ears. However, when Su Sha saw this scene, she immediately covered her mouth to prevent herself from screaming out loud. I'm stopping. Li Zongjio grabbed both of the Ancient One's arms and raised them up, indicating that his hands were no longer in the Ancient One's body. He threw the two arms to the side. Li Zongjio wiped the blood off his body. This matter is not over yet. The Gu family will pay the price for this. Li Zongjio said calmly. There was a domineering aura in his eyes. It was as if nothing in the world could stop Li Zongjio. Since they dared to touch the Li family, they had to pay the price. Regardless of which family or sect they were from, Li Zongjio would have to settle the score with them. At the very least, he had to settle the score. You've gotten yourself into big trouble. Su Hong watched as Li Zongjio tore off both of the Ancient One's arms. He had completely turned the Ancient One into a cripple. He was no longer of any use to him. The Ancient One fainted from the pain. When Zhou Zheng saw that Li Zongjio had deliberately stepped aside, he quickly went forward and transferred some energy into the Ancient One's body to ensure that he would not die. But when Zhou Zheng saw the mark on the Ancient One's forehead, he gasped. Then he sucked in a breath of cold air. There used to be a flame mark on the Ancient One's forehead. This was the primordial fire that the Ancient One cultivated. It was said that this primordial fire was of a very high level. But now, the mark on the Ancient One's forehead was gone. In its place was a bloody hole. It was forcefully dug out. Li Zongjio's move was really ruthless. But Zhou Zheng was glad that the Ancient One was still breathing. As long as he was not dead, there was still room for negotiation. Elder Su, it's not that I don't want to give you face, but I've always been a reasonable person. I'll let you take him away today. Also, help me pass a message. Tell the Gu family to send someone to White Deer Manor to apologize within 3 days. Otherwise, I'll wipe out the Gu family. Chapter 873. Su Hong knew the weight of Li Zongjio's words. Since Li Zongjio had spoken, he would not let them off so easily. If the Gu family did not comply when the time was up, Li Zongjio would have enough reason to go on a killing spree. Su Hong was extremely solemn. One could imagine the melancholy in his heart. On one side was the powerful Gu family. On the other side was an extremely talented alchemist. Even the elixir gathering of the 3 dynasties was counting on Li Zongjio to suppress the other heroes on the battlefield and bring some fame to the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion. At the very least, this was a way for the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion to demonstrate the strength of the nation. Hence, this was an extremely rare opportunity. Even the Ancient One. In fact, the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion had carefully selected him. They had also paid a hefty price to convince the Ancient One to come along. It could be said that they had put in a lot of effort. However, in the blink of an eye, Li Zongjio had turned the Ancient One into a cripple. His temper was quite irritable. The Heavenly Elixir Pavilion had suffered a great loss because of this. This was also the source of Su Hong's headache. Now that Li Zongjio had caused such a disaster, he had to at least protect Li Zongjio's life in front of the Gu family. He could only continue to ask for help. This kind of matter was not something a mere principal elder like him could interfere in. Hence, Su Hong could not help but feel a trace of sadness in his heart. Before meeting Li Zongjio, at least, Su Hong felt that he had some status with his position here. However, after meeting Li Zongjio, even his rank was not enough. Even with his current position, he was powerless to manage some things even if he wanted to. He had to ask for help from someone more powerful. Su Sha did not expect this. She had originally thought that Li Zongjio would be at a disadvantage. However, she realized that she had underestimated Li Zongjio. The person lying in the room just now was Zhang Tianfeng, whom she had always admired. She also knew that Zhang Tianfeng was very powerful. In fact, he had never been defeated in any of the many challenges he had faced. This was his unyielding strength that allowed him to win all the way. However, after meeting Li Zongjio, he simply lay on the ground, motionless. How much time had it been? Could it be that these people did not even have the strength to stop Li Zongjio? It would be good if they could hold on for a little while. If Su Sha were to find out that the third prince had also been here and had also been beaten up, who knew what kind of expression she would have? Furthermore, Su Sha had never expected Li Zongjio and the others to tear down Lingbo Hall to such a state. Young master! Young master! Li Zongjio walked in front of Li Baichao and the others. Li Baichao and the others immediately lowered their heads in shame. This matter was also caused by them. Hence, the current situation must be very serious. Li Baichao and the others were ashamed because they had caused trouble for Li Zongjio. Become stronger earlier. Then no one will dare to bully us. Li Zongjio only gave this faint advice. Li Zongjio didn't care about the cause of the matter at all. He only cared about whether his family had suffered the slightest grievance. This was just the beginning. The reason why he kept that guy alive was to let him have a taste of what it felt like to fall from the peak of life to the bottom of the valley. Li Baichao and the others also nodded fiercely. Speaking of this matter, it was really because someone had set a trap. The other party wanted to provoke Li Zongjio, but they didn't expect Li Zongjio to be so terrifying. He directly brought people to kill in the Lingbo Palace. Even the third prince was beaten up. This was probably something that the third prince himself didn't expect. There was actually someone who dared to beat him up in the Holy Flame Imperial City. Moreover, he had to leave even after being beaten up. Otherwise, if he was seen by the people of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, it would mean that he was seen by outsiders. Then he, the third prince, would not have any face to see others. Li Zongjio and the others also swaggered away. Moreover, he was able to bring Li Baichao and the others out safely. Before leaving, Li Zongjio also set a fire here. It was estimated that in a few minutes, the Xingyan dynasty would not be able to see this Lingbo palace. It would directly turn into a pile of ashes. Su Hong could not do anything about Li Zongjio's rage. He could not beat him, and his alchemy skills were far from Li Zongjio's. Li Zongjio only looked a little younger. If his age was enough, he would be a formidable person. Looking at the few figures leaving, Zhou Zheng felt relieved. Zhou Zheng heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Even Zhou Zheng himself did not have much of a chance of winning against the terrifying Li Zongjio. At least, it was impossible to take advantage of him. With Zhou Zheng's realm, it was already very good that he could sense this. Only a fool would think that Li Zongjio was easy to bully because of his young age. However, things were not like that. Zhou Zheng could very clearly feel that Li Zongjio's hands were stained with several lives. These lives referred to the lives of primitive emperors. Ordinary people might not have such ability. It was also because Li Zongjio's body was stained with the blood of primitive emperors that Zhou Zheng felt a sense of fear when he saw Li Zongjio. That kid is too scary. Where did you guys get him? Li Zongjio had only been popular in the Sacred Flame Royal City for half a year. Who knew that it would turn out like this? It was no wonder that Zhou Zheng was so surprised to have caused such a huge commotion. Only people who had maintained a reputation in the city for a long time would be known by Zhou Zheng. Li Zongjio was indeed very popular in the past, but it was at most a small scale. After a period of time, Li Zongjio had quieted down. No one paid attention to Li Zongjio because there were more important people or things happening. They had to keep up with the trend. Sai, I want to know too. Su Hong also had a bitter smile on his face. Li Zongjio's attack was simply too accurate. The Ancient One would not die so easily in his current state. However, it would not be so easy for him to survive. It would probably take a lot of effort to save the Ancient One. Who knows, he might even become a cripple after he was saved. At the same time, he also carried Zhang Tianfeng away. Zhang Tianfeng had also been kicked a few times by Li Zongjio and was probably badly injured. They returned to Bailu Manor. Xiao Zhao and Taifai had regained consciousness and a few maids were taking care of them. Li Zongjio went to visit Xiao Zhao and told Xiao Zhao that the matter was more or less settled. He had also brought the two people back, so there was no need to worry. Hearing this, Xiao Zhao could finally put down the burden in his heart. It's good that you're back. It's all my fault for being useless, Xiao Zhao said. It's my fault for not making the proper arrangements, Li Zongjio said in a low voice. In the end, it was because the people in the manor were not strong enough that they could take advantage of the loopholes. There were not many experts in the manor to begin with. Nangong Wuji, Hong Shisan and Tian Fei. Although Tian Fei was not strong enough, he was still somewhat capable in front of these people. He could more or less withstand a few blows. However, Nangong Wuji must have brought the two of them out to do something. As a result, when the manor was in trouble, there was not a single person who could help. Get Lu Yong here, Li Zongjio said to Yinghu. Soon, Lu Yong heard Li Zongjio's order and rushed over. Look around and see if there are any rank 6 origin beasts in the vicinity, Li Zongjio said. Lu Yong was stunned when he heard Li Zongjio's words. However, he could guess what Li Zongjio wanted to do. This kind of thing could not be rushed. Young master, it's extremely dangerous to tame a level 6 meta beast. At least 3 meta emperors would be needed for it to be possible. Lu Yong took a deep breath and said in a low voice. Not only was it difficult to tame, but it was also a rank 6 meta beast. It was impossible for it to wander around like some pure wild beasts. Basically, it had its own territory. If it was more powerful, it could establish its own force. Therefore, it was not easy to tame a rank 6 meta beast. Find at least 3 of them. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.